This week on NSF Live, I'm not Jack Bayer, but we will talk about Crew 8, we have potentially a Japanese rocket launch at the end of today, and we will of course talk about the Starship launch, looming over our heads and potentially launching on Thursday. Let's get started.
And here we go. We have liftoff. Propulsion continues to be nominal.
RS-68 chamber pressure looks good.
Doubling up. Roger, with planet.
Water towers, fly! Yes!
Tango down to nominal.
Flight downside, SPD off. Bring in, SPD off. It's orange!
R45! Oh my god! Oh my god!
Decollage. Put that in the big bag, Tingle.
343 unfolds to go.
Indeed.
We rise together, back to the moon and beyond.
The methane would be igniting in the flare, correct?
Yikes. You good? We don't need any more of these.
And with that, hello everybody and welcome to this week's NSF Live, which is a bit of a special one because there will be, let's say, some focus on the big shiny rocket. I heard there's, maybe if you pay very close attention to the news, you'll maybe notice that there's something coming next week, but we'll talk about that. And first off, I want to really start to introduce everybody here that is on today's show with me, starting with the book reading EJ? I see you reading up on on topics today. It's always a good idea to read up on your rocket science before going on a rocket related stream, right? I mean, it depends. I would basically say at the beginning of the show right now we are committed to talk about rockets. Stay tuned for the next 2 hours. You never know where we end. It's a wild ride.
Yep.
Speaking of persons that would. Oh, good.
Yeah, no, I got the mic figured out, but we're good. We're good. I thought this was a show about cows, guys. But anyway, passing it back to Adrian.
And I'm passing it over to Trevor, who would rather be on a Taylor Swift talk show probably, but was invited instead to a rocket talk show. Hey, Trevor, how you doing?
Yeah, it's been great. I mean, this last week was just another prime example of SpaceX. When we thought they couldn't do better, they just, kept being insane. And then this next week is going to be another insane week for SpaceX. So really excited to talk about it with y'all and probably talk about tea towels versus towels or whatever other stuff needs to be talked about.
It's a scary thing. We had a full-blown towel discussion this week already on NSF. It's a thing.
What?
There was a whole thing about the difference between tea towels, and some team members didn't know there's a difference between that. And then there were pictures posted of people's towels, and we were explaining the difference.
They're the same thing.
Right.
I mean, we speaking about rockets.
No, I'm not taking the bait. No. Let's talk about rockets. I don't know what that means.
So apparently 4 more people joined the International Space Station this week in a mission called Crew 8. I'm not sure if somebody watched that here. But we saw the launch of Crew 8 here. You watched it both, right? I figured you probably watched it all.
Yeah, of course. It was amazing. It's a great launch. I mean,
yes.
Not only that, but that day was nuts. That 24-hour period, 3 Falcon 9s, 3 different pads, one of them with crew. Just It was pretty good.
And on top of that Starship wet dress, we had 2 streams ongoing, one for Starship wet dress, one for Crew 8. And, both things just went seemingly very well. And then a few hours later, let me pull up my good old spreadsheet. 18 hours after Crew 8, we had Transporter 10, and then an hour and 50 minutes after Transporter 10, we had Starlink Group 6-41. So that was by far the quickest back-to-back launches at 0.077 days, and then for 3 launches, that was like 0.835 days. That's just like, mind lost.
SpaceX basically launched more than some space companies do in a year in a matter of 24 hours. Like,
yes,
just like that.
It's impressive.
Yeah,
It
and
really
recovered all boosters and recovered and, tested Starship like we were saying and recovered the fairings. It's crazy.
The industrial base that they're building up to be able to support something like this is it's crazy. It's crazy. Let's just call it like it is. It's crazy. I mean, and I think this was the 641 mission. Which core was that one? Do we have that on hand? Following me, camera guy? Trev, do you have that in a spreadsheet?
Yeah, Starlink Group 6-41 was B1073-13.
Okay. That was a quick turnaround on that one. It was a 44-day turnaround, if I'm remembering right.
That's like pretty slow. It's not slow, but it's pretty average. It was
50.
There was a turnaround that was 25 days. So for Transporter 10 was 25.65 days, which was like a pretty quick turnaround for Falcon 9.
Yeah, see that's what I'm getting at here, because you actually kind of segued into what I was getting at. It does not take them very long to refurbish these boosters, especially the newer ones. The ones that have the higher serial numbers can be turned around really, really quick. The reason why those ones are 50, 44, 46 day, 50-day turnarounds is because the drone ship is the bottleneck. Getting the booster back to land on the drone ship, that's the slowest part of the whole process. I want to just reiterate that, just in case anybody missed it. The part of the turnaround process that is the bottleneck is not actually refurbishment or reuse or booster checkout or what they're doing. The bottleneck is actually the drone ships. The drone ships pulling the ships back to the site, and then in the case of Vandenberg, they put it on a barge and they send it up the coast that way, which is absolutely ridiculous. I come from a time where the shuttle, if the shuttle landed, 3 months until it's refurbed and ready to go. I get it. There's a little bit of technical complexity difference between a space shuttle and a Falcon 9 first stage, but also the fact that any spaceflight component is getting turned around on a 2-week basis is pretty ridiculous. That's crazy.
It's like, if you look at it, let's take the record turnaround. Like we are, what, Trevor, 25 days, somewhere in that?
Yeah.
So that's 3
21
weeks.
is the quickest. I was muted on VMAX.
21 days. So we are talking about probably 2 to 3 days until they even get back to port, and then until they get into the hangar and everything. You're probably like what, almost a week until they even have that booster in there again, and then they probably already started preparation for the next mission. So I bet the refurbishment, if you call it refurbishment, I bet it's just minor inspections.
Check out at this point.
Yeah, so we at this point have heard from SpaceX that the refurbishment process itself is on the order of a week at this point. And as Adrian was alluding to, I think that's primarily just inspections. Then a lot of it around was transportation. And honestly, right at this point, SpaceX has something like 20 boosters in rotation. So their launch cadence just isn't high enough to really need quick turnaround of these boosters. So the boosters have shown that they can easily support these 20-day turnarounds. But when you have such a large fleet, they're just not really needed. So it's not that common that we see these super quick turnarounds.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
go ahead.
No, I insist.
All right, cool. I see a question in chat that, so is EJ saying that the landing zones have a faster turnaround time and that's extremely beneficial? Yeah, they could turn around a booster from an RTLS a lot faster. I was more focusing on the fact that we're turning first stages around in a week for the most part. But we're sitting here, we're watching it happen, but I just want to point out that, when we're all 50 years down the road and we're watching documentaries about SpaceX and stuff, this is going to be one of those things that SpaceX finally was able to solve the refurbishment problems and launch every day. Like, this is one of those turning points. That's actually ridiculous that anything that flies that kind of flight regime, where even where the first stage goes, is being just turned around in a week. That's nuts.
Yeah, I think it's like it's one of these situations where everything you think about right now with Falcon 9 is bonkers. Every single thing. It's the launch cadence is completely crazy. I mean, we have 12, 13 launches sometimes in a month now. We have the refurbishment capabilities they have built. We have the whole thing that they don't landings have been so routine. Like we didn't talk about the biggest thing they achieved with all of this, with the fact they are still landing every mission. They're just doing it, and nobody even points it out anymore because they are that consistent with it. I mean, it became a whole game of predicting how accurate they are with this mission, because predicting if they land is kind of a pointless game at this point. We are talking about, will they be off center a bit, by a half a meter? Will they land their orbital rocket stage, or their first stage for an orbital rocket a bit off center of their drone ship? I mean, how bad of them? They're 1 meter off.
And the fact that I don't think, okay, Trevor, just fact check me on this one. I don't think anyone else has reused the first stage ever. Still no one's VTOL the first stage back down and reused it. I mean, Rocket Lab came close by reusing an engine, right?
Yeah, but still, one engine and a whole stage are very different things.
Exactly. Yeah, it's kind of nuts. Still, this far out, first landing was in late 2015. This far out, still no one's still been able to do this, let alone replicate this cadence. It's ridiculous.
Who will do it? I'm going around here. I will start with Trevor here. Of all the companies we have seen so far, who will be the first one that can actually claim we reused the booster? And I do not mean Rocket Lab, where you're we have reused 4 engines on this. I mean a fully booster that flew the first mission also flies the second mission. We'll do it.
Yeah, so I'm going to preface this with I don't follow the Chinese side as closely as I know you do, Adrian. So I'm definitely more ignorant on the processes that they're making. But we know, right, there have been so many grasshopper tests or grasshopper equivalent tests in China in the last few months. So I could very easily see it being a Chinese company who's the next to do it. But outside of SpaceX in the West, it seems like it has to be Blue Origin. Right? Blue is very rapidly pushing toward their first New Glenn flight. This week we saw more cryo testing of New Glenn, and it seems like it could launch this year. And while they're expending the first launch is our expectation, I could easily see them trying to bring back Flight 2. And while that booster may not refly, it seems definitely possible that in 2026 we see the first, late 2025, 2026 we see the first flight proven New Glenn fly.
What do you think about Relativity? You think they're gonna pull a rabbit out of their hat?
I think they're too far out.
Yeah.
I mean, Blue is definitely. Blue has a test vehicle on the pad. Relativity is still, individual part validation on test stands. So,
I'm thinking if we count about first reused flight, I'm really curious. I'm thinking about also the Chinese ones. I think there's some of the Chinese ones who might be in a contest. Landspace seems to Landspace was my front leader for this prediction, but Landspace seems to kind of no longer be interested in reusing Zuki 2 and might move to Zuki 3, which might be the one that does it. So we will see that. But I'm also going with Blue Origin, New Glenn. Yeah, I think they are the favorite. They're right now the favorite to do it. Yes.
Now, here, I'm going to throw another monkey wrench into this. Does smart reuse count from ULA, and will they do it before Blue Propulsive
No.
leaves the stage?
No and no. I'm saying no and no. It doesn't
Yeah,
count, and they won't do it before.
You never know.
I mean, if that counts, then you have to count Rocket Lab reusing an engine.
Do you though? I mean, it's the engine section, not the engine. If we're gonna be technical, right? Like, does it count? Where's the line? Where's this line here?
Okay, I'm gonna say it. I do not think we will ever see smart reuse.
Damn.
I think Kuiper will make it a thing.
Interesting point.
Because in our NSF Live earlier this week, when Lon interviewed the Vulcan chief engineer, right?
That was a great interview. You guys should watch it. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, if you haven't watched it, Lon did an amazing job. We got some awesome stuff. But anyway, he was talking about how they, going forward, want to kind of make an optimized version of Vulcan for these commercial launches. And part of that is mainly because of the, I think ULA has like 30 some odd launches booked with Amazon for their Kuiper constellation. And that's going into a pretty low orbit. So you don't need a ton of performance from the second stage and whatnot. So it makes more sense to make a little bit smaller of a second stage and try to bring those engines back. So if ULA can do that on those missions, I imagine that would be a somewhat nice discount to their customer.
Yeah. So, EJ, I know you've so far thrown curveballs into discussions, but at this point you also have to put your final bet, and I'm not sure what's your final. Like, who's gonna do the first reuse of a first stage?
Oh, I was just being contrarian. I think it's going to be Blue. Blues showed that they're the furthest along. I mean, that first stage, it's. I mean, that engine section that's on the test article that they put out on the pad is not for Flight 1, but to my knowledge, it can be. They could not for Flight 1. They can be converted for Flight, but I mean, hey, here's what I always say. When I talk to, my boys over on the Twitch side of things, right? Hi, Twitch chat. Guys, everybody talks in spaceflight. Everybody says, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to do this. Look at the hardware. Look for the hardware. That's the key. That's the key. Everybody can say, I could say, I'm going to send my private commercial rocket to the moon tomorrow. Until I show you one, it doesn't matter. That doesn't mean anything, So look at the hardware. Like I said, I was being contrarian. I just wanted to see what everybody else would say. I think Blue has the hardware. I mean, there was an interview with a news organization the other day, and they showed the inside of that hangar. There is a lot of stuff in there. Let's just leave it at that. There's a lot of stuff.
Yep. I mean, I feel like there's this whole situation of, this is a company that has traditionally been very conservative in their approach to communications, and suddenly they are very confident. Blue has right now reached a point where they feel confident enough to go out there, communicate to the media, communicate on social media, and as they are a company that tends to be very careful, I feel like they have some confidence there. So I also I think we all agree it's Blue. Probably it's Blue, unless I think there's always this chance that some Chinese company suddenly converts the Hopper project into something, but it's hard to track. So that's the one caveat I would add to that.
So I have 2 follow-up questions for you guys. The first is, 2. I think I can count that. 1 for you guys, 1 for programmers out there. First, do you guys think that Rocket Lab at this point is ever going to reuse the entire first stage? And then my second question is, which do you think gets reused first, a super heavy booster or a New Glenn first stage?
Oh, those are the dude.
Good
really
ones.
Really gets the noggin jogging right there.
I like these questions.
Adrian, go for it, man.
Okay, Rocket Lab. So I'm not 100% sold on Electron's long-term lifetime, because I think that even the company itself has kind of committed to replacing Electron with Neutron down the line, or like developing like some sort of next generation launcher, as they call it, like the next generation rocket. Electron still has problems achieving cost goals, so I think the Rocket Lab itself kind of starts already to move a bit away from Electron. At least that's my feeling from how they are. And I think they want to focus on Neutron, and I think Neutron is still a bit out. So I could see them at some point just scrapping the idea of fully reusing a first stage booster and just don't focus on it anymore. Don't invest that R&D, and just say, okay, we are going all in on Neutron. Let's make it there. Let's design a rocket that is built for it, because Electron is far away from even initially being built for all of this. So I'm leaning towards no, actually. I do not think we will ever see a fully reused first stage booster of Electron.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. I think they're using Electron for probably some material testing, reusing some components here and there. But the pivot to fully reusable Neutron instead of retrofitting Electron with some type of reuse, it's pretty clear. I mean, you just look at the website that Patrick is pulling up over there. That's pretty clear. That's what they're doing.
Yeah.
That's also kind of interesting, because when Rocket Lab first started talking about the reuse program, they seemed to talk about how it was less for cost savings on launches and more for an increase in cadence. But Rocket Lab really hasn't increased their cadence that much. I think SpaceX's transporter missions have been a bit of a problem for the entire small cell launch market, to say the least.
Yep.
If you don't need, their factory can easily keep up with their current cadence. So it makes me wonder, is it even worth it for them to continue trying to recover these when, as Peter Beck has said many times, marine assets aren't cheap? And if you're only reusing a few components, is that worth it?
I love that you said marine assets aren't cheap, because that's totally the nice version of what Peter Beck said about marine assets.
Break out another 1,000.
Yep. I don't know. Yeah, I feel like again, we are all kind of on the same page there, it seems like. And to be fair, Electron, repurposing a rocket that was never designed for reusability, and they were very adamant at the beginning about they don't want to do reusability with Electron. They didn't initially believe in that concept, and then kind of changed that. And this rocket was never designed the way it was to be reusable. They're just kind of hot fixing it on there. And that will bring problems. Neutron will be a different beast. To your second question, I think New Glenn will take it over Super Heavy. I think, while I totally believe in SpaceX ramping up Starship fairly quickly, I do not think we will see a Super Heavy reflown that fast. We have seen even in Falcon 9, it took some time for them. The first few reuses won't be boosters that will, the first few landings won't be boosters that will be reused. The first few landings will probably be boosters that will be analyzed a lot and probably teared to pieces.
The second Falcon that landed was reused.
Maybe I'm wrong, but I think it's New Glenn. I still think it's New Glenn.
EJ?
Let me put it to you like this. I think we're going to see a Super Heavy. I think we'll see Super Heavy at least attempt a landing before New Glenn is. Whether they'll actually chopstick the landing or not, I don't know. Remains to be seen. But SpaceX, we kind of know that they, dude. I mean, you could just look at the buildings behind me to see that they're ramping up pretty hard. We're definitely going to be approaching a high cadence of Starship flights for the later parts of this year, or relatively high cadence comparatively to what we've seen, which, once again, just want to point out how ridiculous it is that we're seeing a 33 engine booster kind of fly on a month to month basis. That's ridiculous. Okay. 33 engines. Yeah, whatever. It's fine. But yeah, I'm gonna go with Super Heavy, but that's not to discount Blue. There was a good question in chat, or there was a good tip in chat from Ryan Hamstra a second ago, and it was I don't know if Blue's gonna stick at the first. What did you say exactly? I would be super surprised if Blue lands on the first 5 tries. think SpaceX makes it look super easy, but Blue is an ULA. They won't be perfect. See, I think that Blue has a lot of data on landing rockets with New Shepard. Now, obviously, New Shepard and New Glenn, two different pieces of hardware. Like, sure. But trajectories are trajectories, right? Guidance systems can easily be moved from one vehicle to another. ULA did that. As they're ramping down Delta and Atlas, they unified the guidance systems on them. So that it's the same hardware controlling two different types of rockets. That's not, and don't get me wrong, that's not, nothing with these vehicles is easy to do, but it's very clear that, guidance data can be moved about between launch vehicles. That's just one example, right? So I think we'll see that booster. The chances of success will be a lot higher than everybody thinks. I think they will land it, but I think we're going to see at least a super heavy landing attempt before that.
Yeah, I think at least my thoughts to this question, I think would be different if Super Heavy was trying to be landed on a traditional pad and not caught with the chopsticks. I just see the chopstick catching maneuver just being insanely difficult. The amount of precision they're going to need is mind-blowing.
We are kind of transitioning already to Starship. We are it's kind of this natural development in this NSF life where we are kind of transitioning, getting pulled to Starship. But I think when I joked at the beginning about we are now kind of looking at how accurately are they landing on the barge. Well, while it doesn't matter for Falcon, that totally matters for Super Heavy. They cannot be off by 1.5 meters, probably. That's because everything, when we say the chopsticks will catch the booster, I think we all three are kind of at least the impression I've so far got is the booster will land on a elevated chopstick platform more than the chopstick catching a booster, right? Because I do not think we will see the chopsticks moving super quickly left to right and just adjusting. I think it will be more like a fixed chopstick situation with minimal movement where the booster comes in. And that requires, we are talking about way less than a meter of margin of error.
Now,
yeah, the term catching is so bad in my opinion. It's just like landing on landing legs that are higher up on your vehicle.
I have crazy theories about this. I can put the tinfoil hat on if you want.
How crazy are we talking?
Not like space aliens crazy. Like this, I have a theory on how they're going to get that booster landing very accurate. But like I said, this is just me, just kind of throwing it out there. It's probably not right. Go tinfoil. Okay, all right. So I think they're going to solve that precision problem here. Let me get my model. Okay. All right. Patrick, full screen me, dude. All right. So I think I'm gonna back up so you can see the whole model. The booster, I don't think is going to come down like this. I don't think it's going to come straight down. I think there's going to be a sideways. There's going to be a horizontal component, similar to how there was with the IM-1 lander. And that's still an awesome mission. Intuitive Machines, you guys rock. That was amazing. You guys did a fantastic job. Not blowing smoke up your tail. It was amazing. All right. So when this thing comes in, right, think about it. If you have a little bit of a horizontal component, you can control that. You can control the direction that you're going a little bit easier, right? And I think when this booster comes in, it's going to it's not going to be like flying sideways, right? Like Space Y or anything, right? We're not doing that. It's going to come down with a slight horizontal component. In doing that, you can control the momentum of the booster and you can be a lot more precise. Think about like if a Harrier lands not like non-VTOL, right? A Harrier, lands like on a regular runway. If you could do that, right? It's going to be a little bit more precise in your landing than it is if you're kind of VTOLing around and, moving kind of left to right. I also particularly think that if, windage it would be a problem with precision, right? Chopsticks can turn. All you got to do is kind of turn those into a headwind, right? And you won't have to worry about that problem again either, right? So if you're going right into a wind, the gimbal on the Raptor engines should be enough to combat that headwind coming in, right? So I mean, think about it like landing on a very, very short and very stubby runway, right? I think if they do that, and once again, this is my crazy theory. This is me shooting from the hip. I have no idea if this is what's going on. I'm probably 100% wrong. But I mean, food for thought, I suppose.
I don't think. I mean, Super Heavy is so big that I don't think they'll have that much of a problem with counteracting wind. So I don't think they'll want to move the chopsticks at all. I think you want a fixed landing location that the booster has to hit. You don't want to be changing the booster's position in space and changing the chopstick position.
No. The chopsticks wouldn't be changing in real time. No, absolutely
Oh,
not.
they would just adjust the landing location, basically.
Think about like changing a runway. Like you know, if you have cross runways at an airport, you'd switch from one runway to the other depending on what the METAR says. So
I do not think SpaceX will want to do that.
You don't think so?
They only have 7 minutes, right? There's a limit on how much they can move these things in 7 minutes based on. I want to see a test of the chopsticks at full speed without a weight. When there's not a Super Heavy attached to it, how fast can they move them? I want to see that.
I don't know. I mean, I don't think they'll move them during a landing. I mean, but we got to take into account they want this thing to be like an airplane. That's kind of their metric. They want Starship to fly as much as a 747. I'm pretty sure that's what SpaceX says all the time. You know, think about not reusing a 747. And I think they're right. I think they're right to pursue something like that. But you got to think about windage. It's not a nice day every day. And in the past, just due to the lower cadence of missions, right? It's windy. Well, 24-hour scrub. We'll go tomorrow. Starship is supposed to buck that kind of trend, right? They want to be able to launch anytime, anywhere. So if you think about windage in that regard, the chopsticks actually makes a lot of sense.
It's kind of an interesting whole discussion because so far a lot of the problems that Starship tries to solve, it solves a lot with brute force. I feel like for example, getting to Leo is kind of we just put so much thrust on this that it will work. Because, let's be real, this rocket is really powerful. Even for the amount it can transport to Leo, it is really powerful. So it's kind of, I don't know. Also, the whole thing of putting more engines on the ship. That's also this Starship is this very, if we need more thrust, we will just get more thrust thing, and then you suddenly get into, there it is, by the way, you get into the situation where more thrust will not help them land. It actually, funnily enough, makes it harder to land. Because, if you're landing, right now, they have the ability to hover. If they would increase it more, they would at some point maybe lose the ability to hover again, like they right now have for Falcon 90 situation. It's a really interesting part of the Starship program that so far we have not seen. We have there's no booster landing expertise at all. The only landings we have seen are of the ship, and the ship now probably uses a whole different system with also landing in the chopsticks as well. By the way, we'll come to the Starship section. I know we kind of transitioned hard out of crew at this point, but we are in Starship, everybody. This is full Starship.
I'll add two things on. So I've seen a bunch of people in chat, and you kind of just alluded to it, thinking about, Starship is able to, or Super Heavy is able to hover when Falcon can't, so that'll be a large increase in precision. And I'm not super convinced by that argument, because if you look at something like New Shepard, they hover, and that thing does not land accurately at all. There are times where it almost misses the enormous pad that Blue Origin has. To be fair, New Shepard is really hard to land since, the larger vehicles are inherently more stable, so easier to land in that sense. But I don't know, it's going to be a very hard guidance problem, but thankfully SpaceX has Lars Blackmore, who absolutely killed it with Falcon 9, so hopefully Super Heavy is the same.
It's like I was saying earlier, guidance transfers over. That absolutely can be moved about.
You can always see that with New Shepard. When New Shepard comes in for a landing, it fights. The moment the engine goes on, you can really see, that thing is fighting right now to go down. Control. I always feel like that's a thing there, which is always interesting to see.
It's like right? You can't balance a pen on your finger, right? It's so hard. But you can get a really tall broom and you can fairly easily balance it on your finger. So that's just like an example of how New Shepard, because it's so small, is actually quite difficult to land. And that's something that Super Heavy won't have a problem with. But I still am not super convinced that being able to hover will allow them to get some super high levels of precision over Falcon 9.
Let me thank some people here, because we've got some very generous support here, and I want to make sure that we thank people. Starting with Blake. Thank you. There we go. Thank you with Blake Alexander. 10 Red Team memberships gifted. Thank you so much for that. And I hope everybody enjoys the memberships here. And we also have Blake Alexander coming in with a $10 super chat. Props to you, Adrian, for hosting at 1 a.m. I'm on Eastern time. I ignore German time. It has no relation whatsoever to when I wake up. It's irrelevant. Caitlin coming in with $5 super chat saying, I had to decide between watching this and Jeopardy Tournament of Champions, and of course I choose NSF. Love all of your live streams. So what's Jeopardy Tournament of Champions? I have no idea.
You don't know what Jeopardy is?
No.
What? Oh, excuse me. I'll take what is? You don't know what Jeopardy is?
I've no idea how to answer this because I don't know the show.
Okay, the joke that EJ is making is Jeopardy is like a quiz show, Adrian, but you have to answer in terms of a question, which is like the stupidest rule ever, in my opinion. So everyone just is like, what is then the answer? It's so dumb. That's the joke he's making.
Oh.
So, Jeopardy is a game show where there's trivia questions on there. And you have various trivia questions that are worth various amounts of money, and whoever has the most amount of money at the end of 2 rounds of Jeopardy and then a third final round wins. It's an awesome thing. You learn a lot. There's like being smart. There's Jeopardy smart, and then there's Trevor smart. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
way on the stupid side.
No. You good?
I want to defend myself against Max here, who said, "Why is Adrian so uncultured for 500? Please." It's not in my TV. I do different quiz shows.
Dang, freaking
yeah,
roast.
I called you out for that, Max. I called you out for that. I want to thank RC Horseman here with 10 Red Team memberships, and I want to thank RC Horseman with two $200 tips. 2 $200 tips coming in to help with rental costs for the extra cameras for OFT3. Thanks, NSF, from all of us, and that can't be there in person. I can tell you, we are cooking something up for the next flight. There's gonna be some really cool things, and I'm really looking forward to. I mean, we're kind of good segue here. Talk about that maybe as early as Thursday. I mean,
we're ready to entertain you. Thursday?
Thursday. I mean, we have a whole clock. There's a moment when I get super nervous about Starship, and that's the moment when Starbase Live starts to display a countdown clock, because that's always the moment when we are like, we are displaying countdown clock. That's making me nervous. How are you feeling? Like, let's go around here. Like, Trevor, we are 131 hours, 20 minutes, and 32 seconds away from the opening of the window of Starship. How are you feeling?
There's so much work that needs to be done that I am somewhat nervous about, given that there are many road closures in that time. So we're going to have... The team that's out there for NSF is having a lot to do to get ready in time, despite Ship 29 also doing some testing this week. But I am really excited. Like, SpaceX seems more confident on this launch. On their webpage, they were talking about some additional tests that they're going to try to complete on this flight. So it seems like confidence is high, and I really, really hope that this test flight just goes well. There's minimal pad damage, so they can just go boom, boom, boom into Flight 4 and beyond.
I like that. EJ, how are you feeling?
I think they'll do it. I think this one's gonna go. I don't see why it wouldn't. I mean, there was the problems with Starship last time and problem with the filters on a 33 engine booster, which I still think that's ironic. You know, that's a lot of engines down south and down on the bottom end and problems with the filters. That's I've heard this story before. If you know, you know. But I'm confident. I think they'll be all right. Also, the back channel's going bananas. Jack thinks that. Jack. Yeah.
I said I don't know what hot fuzz is, and since then there has been also some Trevor too. So I know Trevor is as bad as me with series and movies. Do you know what hot fuzz is, Trevor?
Hot fuzz?
Nope. I'm out.
Also, thanks for displaying the clock that makes me nervous above my head. Thank you so much for that, Patrick.
This is wrong. It's wrong.
What? I'm not sure. I'm not sure what's. Also,
I have no idea what that is. I mean, apparently, I mean, I know it's a Simon Pegg film and is really good. I definitely was not told to say that.
Did you just Google that?
No.
No luck catching them boosters then. It's just the one booster, actually.
Apparently, but Shaun of the Dead is better.
Are we getting like opinions? Are you like getting opinion feeded now for the people that have like no idea? Because then I would also like to have like a voice in my ear that helps me.
A certain wild man that wears orange a lot has these opinions.
I wonder who that is. Like, I cannot. Oh God, Patrick is starting to write. Good movie. That can always go bad. Like I think he's agreeing with the people who know the movie here.
I'm just shocked Patrick didn't misspell anything.
I'm sorry. I'm very uncultured. Also, I see the poll, by the way, in chat. I'm very much aware of the poll that asks when I should get if I should get my first TV. I have a TV. It's next to me. It's right now showing Starbase live.
Can I give a hot take? I think TVs are a waste of money.
EJ is no longer liking to be on the show.
What?
Just get like a computer set up. I don't know, you don't need a TV.
I mean, I agree with that. I also don't have a TV. I just have a computer set up.
Trevor, do you know what a VCR is?
I do.
Are you sure?
I do know what a VCR is. I couldn't tell you what it stands for, but I know it used to like put the tape in, and then you'd go like wind it back, and then you'd record over it, but then you'd have to like program it, and it's like, or you could just stream it.
For the record, I know what a VCR is. I used it.
What about Betamax? Anybody?
No. Out. Have to. No idea.
I tried, Jet. I tried. I don't know. Let's go back to space.
I'm now being told it stands for video cassette recorder.
Oh, I'm also getting... Shaun of the Dead is far superior at...
on there. Wait a minute, what?
Yeah, the problem is I don't want to call out the age of our producer, but I feel like that's also not helping because Patrick also might run into some barriers. So...
The floppy disks. That's amazing.
We'll see how this goes. Anyway, Starship, right? So let's see what we can talk.
Where are we in Starship?
I mean, we are at the situation where SpaceX has confirmed that they want a pending regulatory approval, which is a sentence that carries quite a lot. Want to target a Thursday launch and want to launch Booster 10 and Ship 28 to the Indian Ocean this time. And yeah, that's the plan. Apparently, they're about 131 hours away, pending having a launch license. And I more and more get the feeling this sentence might be very critical down the line in the next week, because, I mean, so far we don't have a launch license. That right now the situation is, if SpaceX doesn't decide to launch without a license, which they would never do, right?
No.
And no, absurd. Then we need a launch license in 3 weekdays: Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and so yeah, it's coming down to the wire here. I think that's the saying, right?
Yep. I'll take launch license will be issued on Monday for 500, please.
Ooh, I like that.
I don't
Because
think
that
there's any chance it comes out Monday. I think it is no earlier than Wednesday. I suspect with SpaceX's level of preparedness, if they're targeting Thursday, they have an expectation that they'll get the launch license the day prior. Just because, knowing SpaceX, they want to get this thing off the ground as soon as possible. They are ready to go, excluding FTS work, which will probably be done this weekend
It's being
or
done.
early next.
It's being done.
Being done.
It's being done.
Yeah.
Very much being done.
Yeah, speak of the devil, and they'll start working. So with this level of preparedness, to me, SpaceX seems to have good indication. And if it was coming out sooner than that, I think the net date would be sooner than Thursday.
I think it would slip based on the license not being ready.
I'm going to be the optimist here. I think it'll come out on Monday. We saw the flight termination system installed today. I think they're going to send it on Thursday. Yep. I'm going to be that guy.
Yeah. I mean, good to be an optimist sometimes. I'm known to be more on the pessimist. Like Alex, I think Alex and me in this point have a reputation to being pessimists, which I'm not sure if I like that reputation. But that's apparently what's going on.
But Adrian, at some point, there's some good news though, because even if Starship gets pushed a little bit, there's an even more exciting launch on Wednesday.
Is it Starlink?
It is Starlink Group 6-44.
All right.
Yeah. Finally, the launch we all waited for.
Oh, I'm in. I'm gonna get the deets right now.
Yeah, I will just drop everything for Starship. Count me on Starlink. Finally, a Falcon 9 flying. It's I have not seen that for days at this point. I mean, we have not seen the Falcon 9 for days.
They're only on track for 126 launches this year of Falcon.
Yeah, almost as much as Starship. They're basically tied.
Well, that poll is accurate. Anyway, huh?
How long till EJ breaks having to deal with these youngsters? Already broken very soon. I mean, it's we have there's other parts in our generation of interest. Like there's.
Tell me what this is.
It's a CD player
with G-Shock protection.
What?
At least you got that right. So it doesn't skip when you're on the bus ride home.
Okay, let me verify. Not just checking something here. Talk for a moment, please.
I'm talking
You know, it's so much easier than that. Going to your Apple Music library, clicking on your favorite Taylor Swift album, and then clicking play. That is the way to do it.
I just looked at something in the back channel here quickly. With that, let's get some questioning for Starship, because I feel like there's some questions about Starship here that we should discuss, because apparently people like to talk about rockets, and especially shiny rocket. So let's
question it up.
I'm questioning it up. Let's see if we can start here. I see questions about Clockwork Orange. The problem is we were too much into pop culture now, and all the questions are: have Trevor and Adrian seen this X amount of pop culture? That's really a thing.
Yes, that's awesome.
You poisoned the questions here, EJ.
Oh, my bad. That's my fault. That's my fault, dudes. I hijacked this whole thing. I'm sorry. We could go back to space. The space questions are good.
Yeah, I mean, okay. Let's before I totally like, what's your expectation for this flight? Of like, when would you define as successful? Like, what's the moment, the event, the single thing where you're like, I'm fine with this, I'm happy with this, and what would be a thing that would be like? Are there things that you would classify as disastrous in terms of progress?
All right. So, RE Starship. I think the only true failure that you're going to have when you're doing a rapid iterative testing regime like this, the only failure you're going to have is one you don't learn from. So, and that's specific to the way SpaceX tests stuff. If other companies are doing a less iterative design approach and kind of more of an all-up test approach, right? You don't want to learn new stuff during the first flight. Like, let's take Vulcan, for instance. You want to minimize the amount of things you learn from that thing when you go to do its first test flight, because they tested as much as they could on the ground and then flew. And it, for the most part, performed great. That's kind of the polar opposite of what SpaceX is doing. With SpaceX, you can run into, problems, right? Obviously, like we saw some problems on the last one. But once again, with their type of iterative testing, the only failed test is the one you don't learn from. And they I think they learned not to vent liquid oxygen after the last flight. That, it probably wasn't a good idea, but hey, it's all right. So, I like, in regards to Starship, I think this one's going to make it. I think it'll go. I really do. I mean, you guys can hold me to it. I mean, I know the internet likes doing that, and they like sticking it to the streamer, man. That's fine. We'll do. Yeah, of course. We'll do the next NASASpaceflight live in a week, and if something does go wrong, you guys can all sit here and point and laugh at me. It's fine. I'm used to it. It's okay. But I think it'll work. I really do. I think, Trevor, you know that, propulsion is your long lead item, and we see Raptors get torture tested constantly at McGregor. I think that the only problems, if they are going to have anything, it's going to be something that they wouldn't be able to test on the ground. So, like the plumbing for all 33 engines, that's going to be a little bit harder to test that through, a 2-minute 30 flight regime. Maybe with some test stand in the future, they'll be able to, test something like that. But there are certain unknown unknowns that you're going to have. But once again, SpaceX is very much, put it on the pad. Let's go. Let's get something up there. Let's get it flying, because that's the, I said those, the only failed tests when you're doing iterative design is the ones you don't learn from. But also the flip side of that is that when you're doing iterative design and you're flying a lot, you're going to learn the most. Flight teaches you the most. Absolutely. There's nothing speaks to a learning experience like putting it on the pad and hitting the go button and seeing what happens. Once again, with that being said, I think this is going to make it. My criteria for success would be just to get on orbit. There's the payload deployment. They're going to flip, not payload deployment. They're going to open and close the payload bay, and then maybe do a cryo transfer between the header tanks, and then a Raptor deorbit burn. I think it's success up until orbit. Anything that happens after that is bonus territory, right? It's always been get to orbit. They need to establish orbital capability with that thing. And, once they get some good data on that thing getting all the way up into space, it's just going to get easier from there. Getting orbit that's the huge hurdle. It's the huge hurdle from there. I don't think that propellant transfer is as difficult as everybody makes it out to be. I really don't. We move propellants around. They move propellants around on the ground, no problem, right? And SpaceX did release their new timings for Super Heavy. I don't know if we have that teed up, Patrick. Maybe you can help me out putting that on there. But I just on a side note here, a little bit of a tangent. I know Mr. Chaos over here. The fact that they're fueling Super Heavy on a similar timeline to Falcon 9, when Super Heavy takes an insanely amount more of propellant and it's fully cryogenic on top of that, is ridiculous. I mean, if SpaceX can flow that fast up here, down here, I don't think they're going to have problems up there. I get it. A vacuum is not down here. I know the difference. I get it. But I don't think that's the hard part. I think that just getting it into space, that would be mission success right there. Also, they do fuel the ship before the booster. We didn't see that wrong when we were watching the wet dress rehearsals the other day, which I don't know. I still don't know why you would do that, but hey, well, maybe we'll learn something too. Excitement is guaranteed per SpaceX, right? And at the bottom of that timeline.
It's certainly interesting. Like the speed they speed is absolutely bonkers that they have fuel during the wet rest rehearsal. Like performing this basically as fast as a Falcon Heavy countdown with a 3 times as volume a rocket. Like this OFT is working. The orbital tank farm. The orbital tank farm is completely insane. What's your take on this, Trevor?
So I was going to say, going back to something EJ said about them not dumping LOX this time, that's almost certainly not going to happen, because keep in mind, sure, there was issues with that on the last flight, but SpaceX has to load that amount of liquid oxygen that they do on the ground. And they don't want that liquid oxygen for re-entry. It would completely throw off all of the CG and whatnot that they would expect, right? You only want liquid oxygen in the header tanks. You don't want any oxygen or methane in the or that much in the main tanks. You want just headers. So they have to do this burn or this dump on these missions where they don't consume all of their fuel. So it's just going to be, right, SpaceX obviously learned from the last one, and they're going to go and, they weren't super clear on what exactly happened in that process, but, changes will be made so the same failure mode doesn't get repeated. But going back to your original question, Adrian, of what's a successful flight, I think the minimum that this mission has to do in SpaceX's mind is reach orbit. I suspect if they don't make it into this almost orbit, they would be very disappointed. I think the propellant transfer will be hard. We've seen so many rockets have delays or scrubs for valve issues or whatnot on the ground because the propellant's so cold, because you have to move so much, blah blah blah. Now imagine doing that while you're in space when you can't just scrub at any time. So I think that'll be really hard. I imagine the payload bay door open thing will be trivial, and then I don't really see that many problems with Raptor's relighting on Starship. Starship Raptor reliability has been quite good. So if they get that far, it's just, does ship survive reentry? That'll be a hard one. Right, they've been doing a lot of tile work these last few days, which has been a good sign that they at least want to get that far. So I just personally don't think it'll survive reentry on the first time, but if they get any reentry data, that's just a huge win.
Mm-hmm. I'd say that's playing with house money. Yeah, I'm with you on that one. Now,
yeah, if they
go ahead, Adrian.
No, I insist.
Again, all right, cool. Now, Trevor, I have a question for you. You talking about venting liquid oxygen? Do you think they're going to do it post a deorbit burn, or on orbit on the way up like before? What do you think? I'm curious now.
It has to be on the way up, I think.
You think so?
Yeah. So I guess the one thing that we're really not sure of is, right, SpaceX has talked about this propellant transfer demo, but never has it been specified of what they're actually transferring propellant between. So obviously it's going to be from headers to mains, right? It's not like they're launching 2 Starships or something like that to transfer fuel between. But is it mains to headers? So is it possible that on the ground they're not even going to fill the liquid oxygen tank and then just have a little bit of liquid oxygen left over in the main tanks and transfer it to headers? Is it possible that they do the reverse of that? What do they do for the deorbit burn then? It's super confusing to me. So I don't know.
I had another wild idea if you guys want to hear it.
I'm up. We need a bumper at this point, EJ's wild ideas that just comes up every time you say that, and just it's a giant banner and a red flashing light.
Patrick's on it. I could feel the furious typing. I gotta find this. I can feel it.
There has to be something in here somewhere. He's enhancing and hacking the system.
Yeah, hacker man, I'm in.
Yeah, it's a good old science fiction enhanced compilation. No, I'm up. I'm up for hearing this.
So I have a wild idea. Once again, Trevor, you're probably going to cringe at this, but you made me cringe with the Betamax thing. So I'm just paying it forward, okay? What do you think about doing a pre-burner, basically the equivalent of a pre-burner test, but on orbit to move your propellants around? Because think about it. So in order to move these propellants around, you're going to need some ullage. You're going to need some pneumatic system to move the propellants. How are you going to get them to move otherwise? Are they going to heat up the tanks? I don't think you would want to do that, right? Do you think they'll do like a pre-burner style test and get the turbo pump spinning but no ignition and use that with autogenous pressurization to move the propellants around? That was my wild theory.
That would have the exact same problem, that you need a non-inertial frame for the propellant to be settled at the bottom of the tank for you to want to start spinning up those turbines. Because if you spin up the turbines and you suck in an air bubble, there's a very high chance of a rud. So the way that they're going to have to do this is you need to make sure that the vehicle and propellant are no longer in an inertial reference frame. And what that ultimately comes down to is they'll have to use some cold gas thrusters or something, or ullage pressure, to start slowly accelerating the vehicle. That'll have propellant settle in whichever way they need to. And right, this is the same thing that every stage on orbit does. Right, Falcon, for their even on the Falcon's first stage, there are propellant settling thrusters. On the second stage, you'll see, I think there's generally about 40 seconds of a propellant settling thruster burn ahead of any MVAC reignitions. On ULA's vehicles, they do the same. I know some vehicles, the way they get around it is instead of having cold gas thrusters, they have a really small SRB, but that's obviously not quite preferable if you want to have many relights. But yeah, to do a pre-burner test or a spin prime or anything, you already need to have propellant settled. So it's like you need something else.
It's like I always love this because it's one of these topics that nobody is aware of when they initially start with rockets. Like it's a thing of propellant settling. It's not out there, right? You don't, if you just look at cool rockets launching, you're like, they just ignite engines, and then you get to these like details and research and just suddenly notice, propellant settling is a problem that basically every rocket has to deal with that operates in space. And it's there's so many different ways to solve it. Like you said, for example, with these propellant settling thrusters, there are other ways like basically using rotation to move the propellant where you want it to. There's so many different funny things that engineers in the past came up to solve this, and the whole like flip thing of Starship and everything like, and also hot staging. Hot staging has the big advantage that it solves the initial propellant settling while igniting your like stage, because you still have the thrust, you're still pushing the propellant back, and you just never have this floating momentum. It's I just love that's what I love about hot staging, because you find so many different things that it optimizes or solves as you go for it. And I'm so happy that hot staging was just randomly introduced after Flight 1. It's still the coolest thing that just had randomly like, oh yeah, by the way, we're just going for hot staging.
It even has like more advantages than I thought at first. In CSI Starbase's Zach's latest video, he was talking about what actually starts the flip of the booster. And I guess I had assumed, I hadn't paid super close attention, that it was done, with either RCS or the or gimbling the engines on super heavy itself. But there's not really evidence to suggest either of those things. So his conjecture is that it's either done with a slight delay in ignition of the engines, which causes a little bit of a torque on the vehicle and starts it to rotate, or having them do it, even though they're high up in the atmosphere, there will be enough gas flowing through the grid fins from the second stage that it would allow them to slightly use the grid fins to start this maneuver. So again, I want to emphasize that's all speculation on his part, but that's still something that wouldn't be possible if it wasn't for hot staging and just further optimizations that SpaceX was able to make.
And at this point, of course, absolutely shout out to CSI, always delivering very, very deep analytic content about Starship. So shout out.
His last video blew my brain. The amount of work was...
Yep, absolutely. Okay,
Smart dude. Zach's amazing.
Let's quickly also ask some question here, because so does Starship have ullage thrusters to settle the propellant at all, Trevor?
It must. If they're going to do they have plans to do this deorbit simulation burn, so they have to. I couldn't tell you where they are or exactly in what form, but I'll ask Alex and or Ryan in the back channel to see if they know off the top of their head.
There we go. And by the way, still updating. We are about 55 minutes away from the opening of the window for the Japanese rocket, which is coming up here. So we still have some stuff to come up for you. So if you want to stick around, we will still cover that and look at that because, well, it's a maiden flight. Well, who's not excited for a maiden flight? Like that's always the coolest flights because you learn something, you see something you've never seen before.
Well, yeah. I'm just amazed that we see so many maiden flights nowadays.
It's crazy how many new rockets are coming up everywhere. I mean, even this year, like if you're just to derail this a short moment, we have Ariane 6, we have the potential for New Glenn. New Glenns. We have, I think, like the other day I counted like 3 different Chinese rockets that are supposed to launch this year. What am I else missing? I think in theory Neutron is still scheduled for this year, right? But it's like are we? I feel like that it's gonna be probably, but yeah, like 6 rockets or so coming up, probably more.
And we already have Vulcan this year.
We had Vulcan already, true, which probably goes props to one of the most flawless debut mission of all times in terms of rocket perspective. Like that rocket just went for it, and did it, and
that's how waterfall testing is done. That basically broke the mold on first flights being just perfect. Yeah. I mean, there were some things here and there from that Tori Bruno said on social media after, but I mean, for a first flight going that good, shooting the Peregrine lander right into like a perfect orbit, it doesn't get better than that.
Absolutely. It's honestly, I love these different approaches because of course we really enjoy this approach of Starship right now, right? Like we love the testing and the explosions and let's see how far we get. But it's also just cool to see ULA coming right off the barn, putting this rocket on the pad and be like, yeah, I mean, it's gonna work.
Of course it's gonna work. It's ours. Of course it's gonna work.
Yeah.
It's pretty Chad tier stuff right there.
Yeah, absolutely. Second stage anomaly asking, why do they open the payload door, then do prop transfer, then close the door again? Will they somewhat, like, is the payload door in any way related to the prop transfer test, or are these just 2 different tests they run on this flight?
That's a good question. I don't think there's really enough information to tell. My gut, what Mr. Chaos is back. My gut's telling me that they don't really have much bearing on one or the other. I mean, they might be looking to expose something in the payload bay to the vacuum for a second or for a long period of time. They could be trying to figure out something there. But I'm not entirely sure. Like, so, I mean, first of all, this flight's really, really short because it's coming down to the Indian Ocean instead of over Hawaii, like the last planned test flights, right? So it's not going to be a great deal of time. I think it's just, if the thing, check to make sure it opens and do the propellant transfer, like they're on a really condensed schedule here, right? And, if it opens, that's great. If it doesn't open, it's not like the shuttle, like if the payload bay doors didn't close, you got a big problem, right? Or if they didn't open, you got an even bigger problem. I think it's just all right, okay, make sure it opens. Now let's do the prop transfer, okay, if it doesn't close, I mean, Trevor, you were saying a little bit earlier, there's not a high likelihood that it's going to make it. But if it does, I don't see the payload bay door being open or closed really have much bearing on, if it didn't make it because the payload bay door is closed or open. Like, I don't think that's a big deal.
My speculation is that I could imagine that Starlink deploy, when they have a fairing full of Starlink satellites, would take on the order of 15-20 minutes. So they're just trying to, mimic that behavior, but don't know for sure.
Yeah, I think based on anything we have seen so far, these two should not be related because we know there's nothing in, we are very sure there's nothing in this payload door. So there's not like a test tank or anything in there. We would have probably known that, or at least at some point we would have gotten to know it. So yeah, that's probably the answer to this. When are they going to we might be closing into a restack here, right? Like in the next few days, because we know they are arming the FTS right now. They are working on. I think we have views on the. Yeah, there we go.
Oh yeah.
There's the FTS box open.
Yeah.
Ah yes, the forbidden silly putty is getting put in there. Anyway,
going back to the question a minute ago about booster and ship ullage thrusters, apparently the ship has vents in the engine skirt that could be used for an ullage burn and could use the header tank's vents in the nose if needed. And then on the booster, they have the cowbell vents on the LOX tank, and that's what's expected to be used for all of these ullage. Whenever they need these ullage gas propellant settling burns.
Those things. The cowbell vents.
You even have the. Yeah. So we should probably
model,
explain, by the way. FTS always is for people maybe not around all the time here. FTS always sounds super nice, right? It's a complicated. It's a flight termination systems. These are big booms. They're there to make, in case they need to do them. They basically rupture the tanks. Just to point this out, that's what they do. They're installing explosives here right now. That's why the thing they're doing right now takes so long, because there's a person that is very educated about explosives probably out there right now, making sure the explosives are properly installed and harnessed up and everything. Because that's the one system that never should fail in a spaceflight. The FTS is kind of important.
That's actually an interesting question. Has there ever been an FTS failure on a rocket? Like it accidentally triggers during ascent or something like that?
I
wonder. Starship Flight 1 probably came the closest so far to an FTS problem. I see EJ has thoughts about this.
No. I was just thinking, Mercury Redstone 1, we're going back old school. The flight termination system triggered at T0 and popped the launch escape system off, and the rocket just kind of fell right back down. Right? I don't know if that counts. Does that count? It was just it was in flight just for a second though.
I would say that counts. If you destroy your whole missions based on the FTS, I would say that's a pretty significant FTS failure.
It's crazy. If you guys go watch footage of that, it looks like checking your staging in KSP. It looks exactly like it. It's the thing goes boop, and then launch escape system
Patrick,
shoots
can
off.
you bring that up?
If we have that somewhere, that would be amazing. I'm not sure if that's
You're gonna look at it. It's just gonna be like, okay, all right.
Yeah, it's. I don't know. Starship Flight 1 also comes very close to, at least I would classify it as an FTS not working optimally. As in, that should never happen. And to be fair, the FAA and SpaceX acknowledged that problem can never happen again. And they beefed up the FTS quite a bit. Because I love how SpaceX, by the way, solved this problem. It's boom wasn't big enough. Let's put more boom into it. Now works. Perfect.
Yeah, what's the other solution, right?
Yeah. It's they could have. I mean, there are other designs, right? There's a ripcord design as well, where you just basically cut off the welds.
They have det cord that goes down the raceway. It's not det cord for real. Anybody that's EOD just went, what? It's basically just it goes down the side and unzips it like a jacket. Only it's fuel tanks.
Yeah, I think there's probably very different ways to design an FTS. I think there are even in theory you could also do an external FTS where you just have a tracker that tracks your vehicle, and as soon as it goes off, you just shoot it down, right? In theory,
maybe
external FTS. What was the FTS for shuttle?
It was on the SRBs. They didn't have one. To my recollection, they didn't have one on the tank or the shuttle. The flight termination system was on the solid rocket boosters. It was used once. Yeah.
I didn't even know if a crewed vehicle at that point had a flight termination system in any way, because.
Oh yeah, I mean.
Yeah.
There
Imagine
was.
having that job where you had to click the button of FTS on that mission.
Yeah, that's that whole mission was not a good day. Let's just leave it at that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's this whole discussion in general about like disconnecting from shuttle, but in theory, Falcon also is equipped with an FTS system, and there could always be a situation, and that's just the reality of spaceflight, where like something goes off course, and there's like the good thing with Crew, of course, with Crew Dragon is there's an abort system, right? There's a way to get the crew out, but even then, there is an AFTS or like there's a flight termination system on Falcon 9, even if there's a crew on board, which is it's a thought.
So yeah, exactly. With rockets with launch escape systems, like even the Saturn V. The Saturn V had one of the last things they do with the Saturn V was install the flight termination system. They do it on the pad. That's what the whole mobile service structure was for. That the crawler would pick up and go, because you didn't want to put explosives inside of the VAB, right? Going back to Saturn and other rockets with launch escape systems, right? Obviously, they had flight termination systems too. They're calling out abort contingencies, right? Like mode 1, 1A, 1B, 1C, right? And even, on Dragon, they do the same thing. With Crew 8, we heard, Matthew Dominic calling out the abort contingencies. And then the end one is Shannon. With the shuttle, you didn't have those. But the shuttle still did have a flight termination system. It was kind of, in hindsight, that doesn't seem smart. But you got to remember, the shuttle was supposed to get to the point of flying, like, on a weekly basis, pretty much what Falcon 9 does now. And the whole point is that maybe, you wouldn't have to deal with that down the road. But
yeah, I guess from the very there. Yeah, like I think from a very like grim and very like it always makes sense to have a way to control the way how your 5,000, 3,000, 2,000 ton propellant vehicle is like controlled and in one case terminated. It's the thing about spaceflight. I think we have. I'm not sure if we are able to fully display it here, but I think we have the footage of the Redstone 1 launch figure. I'm not sure if we are yet.
Oh, this is great. We were down in the dumpster for a second. Watch this. This is awesome. No, I mean no one's on board.
I think it's something else. It's an intent. Oh, sorry. It's a different failure. But let's. I'm not sure which this failure is then.
No, that's it. That's absolutely it. Yeah. It's in flight. It counts. It was just maybe a couple inches off the launch pedestal. And then see you later. Check the staging.
Once again?
It's in flight. It was off the pad. It counts.
That's 100% mean Kerbal. Like 100%.
What?
You have you have the parachute in the first stage, and everything goes bad.
Yep. Art imitates life.
This is perfect.
That's the only one I could think of a flight termination system going off when you really didn't want it to.
Huh. That's
speaking
of funny to watch, dude.
Flight termination systems. Some news that just came out today that won't spend long on, but is worth discussing. Starliner got pushed to May, but they seem to be getting close, which is. I don't know. I know Starliner isn't the sexiest spacecraft, especially now that it's so late, but I'm honestly really excited for it to launch.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think it's. I will go so far as to say I'm going to get flack for this one, but I'll go so far as to say I think it's a good design. I think it's easy to discount how long it takes to make a human-rated capsule, even for low Earth orbit, right? I've talked about this a couple of times over on my end. Like, if you think about it, when Starliner, I can tend to say that Starliner's actually, I mean, yeah, it is a little bit delayed. The fixed pricing probably didn't help when you're developing a new capsule, right? But if you kind of go back and think about this for a second, so obviously SpaceX beat them to the punch, or did they? Right? Like, I mean, you can't argue with results. I understand that, and I'm not trying to say that they're on parity. What I am trying to say is that if you look at when SpaceX launched their first capsule, the Dragon, on the COTS-1 mission, right? That was their first capsule, to DM2, right? The first crewed launch. What are we talking about here? What kind of gap are we talking about? 2010 to 2020. It's about 10 years, right? It's about 10 years. Now, I understand SpaceX and Boeing got awarded the commercial crew. That was in 2014. But see, at that point, SpaceX already had 4 years of capsule experience. Yes, it was uncrewed. Yes, it was Dragon. It wasn't a crewed capsule. I understand that. But if you look at total development of that system, right? 2010 to 2020, that's 10 years, right? Apollo did it a little bit quicker, but they had some speed bumps along the way, right? The shuttle, same amount of time. So basically 1972 to 1981, that's 9 years. I mean, I still can't believe they did that with Gemini, the Gemini program's budget. Yes, they did. We've checked it before. It's ridiculous. But if we're looking at, to really get a capsule ready to go, any human-rated spacecraft takes about 10 years. Now, commercial crew was awarded in 2014. What year is it? 2024. Starting to see a crewed test flight. I guess they kind of overpromised. Yeah, you probably don't want to do that. You want to underpromise and overdeliver. It seems like we kind of have the flip side of that. But I still don't think that Starliner is a bad design. I think that it's just running into any other teething problems that any human-rated spacecraft is going to have. And if you look at the time frame, it's about right. It's about on par with SpaceX. And I know that seems weird, right? But consider this, all right? And this is something that I actually ask Chad a lot, just to kind of get people to get the gears turning up there. What spacecraft has Boeing designed before Starliner? Feel free to chime in, right? What have they engineered? What craft have they developed before Starliner? Any spacecraft? Now, I know what people are going to say. People are going to say Space Shuttle, Apollo Command Service Module. Well, those were not developed by Boeing. Those were developed by North American first for the CSM and Rockwell International for the Space Shuttle. Boeing operated those spacecraft after they acquired the company. They've never developed their spacecraft before. Boeing traditionally has built stages like the core stage, like the S-1C on the Saturn V. They've never designed a capsule before. And if you look at it from that perspective, they're kind of on par. It's kind of par for the course with 10 years of development for a human-rated spacecraft. Just an interesting thing. What do you think, Trev?
Yeah, I mean, I don't fully disagree, but it does seem like there was definitely some arrogance on Boeing's at the start of the contract, right? My understanding is that Boeing fully expected to be the only ones to win this contract, a commercial crew contract, and then for them to turn it into a cost plus program, just like most other Boeing programs have been. And then when SpaceX got selected and, started actually delivering a product, I think Boeing was really not expecting that. So I don't know. There's definitely I do think Boeing gets some unfair criticism since what they're doing is very hard with the Starliner spacecraft, but also when you kind of start off thinking, oh, there's no competition, so we don't need to try that hard. It's, yeah.
So I agree. I'm not arguing that eyes were bigger than their stomachs there. Absolutely. I'm just saying, like, historically speaking here, capsules, if you look at every other spaceflight capsule, it takes this amount of time. And yeah, I'm not gonna say that they weren't arrogant. They were like, oh yeah, we'll get that done in like 4 years. It'll be fine. No, you won't. No, you won't.
Yeah, I think the bigger problem is how close Boeing repeatedly got to launch before finding substantial issues. Like ahead of their pad abort test, right? They were going to do that, and then they found big problems with the abort motors that delayed the test for quite some time. I think there were leaking or something like that. And then on that test, they forgot to screw in a parachute, which is like not a good, that was not a good look for them. And then of course OFT1, where they didn't complete all of the testing that they had agreed upon before. And then going ahead of OFT2, right, they got pretty close to launch, very close to launch, before finding that all of the thrusters had been damaged from humidity in the area. And then I think there was another problem with, now it was parachutes that they're doing some more work on, and the whole wiring thing. Those are all problems that I can totally understand why they ran into. The part that kind of worries me is how late they ran into some of those problems. So I'm really glad that NASA and Boeing have now been going over the spacecraft, with the fine-tooth comb or whatever the expression is, so that when it launches later this year, it will be a successful mission and those astronauts will be safe.
Yeah,
I think.
go ahead.
I think overall I would attest the program some issues. However, I do not see them on the engineering side. I think on the engineering side they're pretty doing what you, as you said, like that's the overall expectation. Like there will be problems developing a crew capsule because there's like it's a very complicated thing to do. Like this is not trivial. Like developing Starliner is not a trivial thing. They have to build the expertise. They had to build all of that in the engineering. I do not blame that. I think based on another few things we know, I blame a bit of the like testing regime management kind of area of like there should be maybe a part of a bit more oversight, a bit more desire to test, and a bit more like quickly approach on that front. However, that's not on engineers. Like I agree, Starliner is it's a beautiful capsule. It's a really, really cool design. I'm looking forward to see it fly. I think the problems of the program should be criticized on the management part and not on the I don't like when people are like, oh, the purpose is obsolete next to Dragon. It kind of does the same thing as Dragon. It delivers people to space, and if it does that well, then it's okay to have two capsules. There's very much a reason to have two capsules around, because even we are used to Falcon performing flawlessly. But imagine a scenario where that doesn't happen. Imagine a scenario where they have some issues. Falcon 9 is grounded for, I don't know what reason. Like, it can always happen to rockets. And suddenly, Starliner would be there to help with that. So I like having options. I like having two capsules.
Oh, yeah. Redundant dissimilar architecture
interesting.
Is great.
It's also interesting how, NASA admitted that at the start, they also messed up where they were overly focused on SpaceX, and SpaceX's development methods are so different from what NASA is used to, right? SpaceX has the fail quickly approach, and we saw this throughout their testing where I'm sure they had Dracos explode on the stand, and then even they had C20, it was the DM1 capsule. Sorry. Yeah.
It was 203, I think.
C203, that sounds right. Right, that capsule blew up on the test stand right before IFA was supposed to happen. So, I'm not trying to say that Boeing is the only one that found problems late. SpaceX very much did as well. But it was just interesting how even NASA has admitted that they probably focused too much on SpaceX and didn't have enough oversight of Boeing throughout the process at the start.
Yeah, once again, what I was saying is not saying that they weren't, their eyes weren't bigger than their stomachs. They absolutely was. But the whole thing reeks of inexperience, and that's not like what, as Adrian, as you were saying, that's not to say that the people working on this thing don't know what they're doing. They absolutely do. But Boeing's never designed a capsule before, and if you think about that from that perspective, Trevor, I think you're right. Like there's no excusing, like, oh yeah, it'll be fine, and then it's not going to be fine. Oh yeah, it'll be fine doesn't work in spaceflight. Right, they're very. I think they're very overzealous in their timeline, and that's fair, right? But I'm saying, like, just if you look at the time it takes to make a capsule historically, they're right on par with it because of that inexperience. They never made a capsule before. Never made a spacecraft before. They've operated them. Just because you can drive a car doesn't mean you can build one. You know what I mean? And like it's Trevor. It's ridiculous to me that nobody had that foresight. They were just like, oh yeah, they'll be able to do it. It's using X shuttle parts. It'll be fine. Like that's woof. That's a little weird. But once again, 10 years. Even if you look at SpaceX's timeline with the mess ups that they had with the DM1 capsule, right? And don't get me wrong, NASA was looking at SpaceX, like you said, they were looking at them under a magnifying glass when they probably should have been doing that with both. But it's very interesting to me that, even through all the stuff that's gone on with Boeing and, their timelines and stuff, right? They're still right on par, like about 10 years to make something that's human rated that moves, that flies into space, that flies into low Earth orbit.
It's a hard problem.
It is not an easy thing to do. Absolutely.
Yeah. It's like when we talk about who's the next to land the rocket. It's like also, that's a very complicated problem to solve. Especially if you're maybe not on a cadence right now to try that every other week. Space tends to be hard. I know that's a phrasing we sometimes use maybe a bit too much, but it's true. And especially crew-rated space is very hard.
Everybody says, you're right. Everybody says space is hard. They don't know why. It's really easy. The reason why this is so difficult is it's really easy to miss something small. Like, once again, I love intuitive machines. You guys are the best, but they didn't plug in their laser rangefinders. It's easy to forget small things like that. It's very easy. Like, it's very, very easy to look over the minutia when you're doing a huge, ridiculously complicated mission like this. That's one of the reasons, right? It's easy to overlook stuff. Very easy.
Yep. It's one problem that goes wrong, and that's always the thing, I think, that with space becomes a problem pretty quickly. These capsules stay in space for weeks, months, depending on what the mission they perform, and you don't really have a way to, put them into a garage after once they are in the air for 10 hours, and you just look at them and be like, oh, let's give it a quick inspection. No, once you're there, it has to stay for the mission duration. There's no fixing. There's no just quick, easy. Oh, let's put some flex tape on it and call it a day.
Yeah.
Plus, there's the whole the design philosophy, or the philosophy that you have to have for these spacecraft is just so different, right? Elon's talked about this a lot, where, right, when you're trying to land a Falcon, who cares if you have a failure? It sucks that you're losing that hardware, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. And heck, even if it's a customer mission with some, billion-dollar satellite, absolutely is horrible to lose those missions, but you'll take more risk on that than when you have 4 humans on top who have families, who have parents that love them and whatnot. It would be a scary thing to work on.
Yep, absolutely. Remember when we talked about Starship? It's a good while ago, but apparently there's also Starship.
Wait, what? Starship?
Yeah, apparently this clock there in the top left, this net clock says where they want to launch one of these again. It's I'm not sure if you heard about it. It's like an indie rocket. It's
it's like an indie rocket. You probably haven't heard of it. No big deal.
I think one thing that I would like to just point out real quick is the launch license has not been released yet. I know there's been some social media posts talking otherwise, so make sure you just take any information with that as a huge grain of salt, unless it's coming from, a reputable source of someone directly quoting an FAA statement, or someone like Eric Berger or whatnot. But the launch license is not out yet.
Yeah, make sure to verify that it's from the actual FAA. And I want to thank some people. I'm so bad at keeping up with. Oh my god, that was a cube zoom. I saw that, Patrick. I saw that. For some reason, he loves his cube zooms.
Thank you to sweet. Do it again. Sorry, go.
Don't encourage him. No.
just thank these people.
Stephen Hansen coming in with becoming a launch director, which is our very highest level here. So thank you so much for that support. and I hope you enjoy the perks that come with it. Ryan Hamster coming in with a $4.99 super chat. It would be super, super surprised if Blue lands in the first 5 tries. That's the one you talked about that came in chat. So we talked about that, but thank you so much. Let's see here. Rusty Android coming in with a $5 super chat. Once the FAA grants a launch license, do you think it would be for one or multiple launches? And I think that's an interesting question because
It's a good question,
a launch license doesn't have to be for one launch. It can be for like valid until the 5th flight or valid until the 10th flight. So what's your thinking here? Let's start with you, EJ. It seems like you have some thoughts here.
I think it's a case-to-case basis. It's a case-to-case basis until they don't have to do mishap investigations anymore. Once I think if they complete all of their objectives and the ship does a belly flop in the ocean, I think then we'll start seeing more grouped together launch licenses.
Trevor, do you anything different on the opinions here?
Definitely just one launch for now. I think we're several launches away from them getting a more general application for more than one.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna say 2.
2?
Yeah, I'm gonna say
Why?
they get a launch. So the reason is the launch license doesn't prevent a mishap investigation. If they trigger a mishap investigation with the 3rd flight, they would still need to conduct a mishap investigation before the vehicle is no longer grounded. Like the FAA can still prevent the flight because an ongoing mishap investigation that is ongoing. So I think there might be a situation where they give 2 launch license because there are no other concerns. But still, if something triggers a mishap, which, let's be real, based on the definition of a mishap investigation, Starship has at least a decently high chance to trigger a mishap investigation with the 3rd flight. Then I think that might happen. But I could see 2 flights or so. We just skip this part after the mishap. It's basically where they now getting this license modification, because the launch license right now says there's just some phrase in there. This launch license is valid until the 2nd flight of Starship, and the problem is they need like a passes that says, hey, this launch license is now valid until the 3rd, 4th, or whatever. That's just a. But again, it would probably at this point just save them like 4 weeks or so, because from mishap to launch license we are probably talking about 4 weeks or so. So yeah, we'll see. I mean, they're trying to get faster here. It's a whole question. That's a whole nother topic of when do we think a realistic flight 4 could happen? Like, pending on the situation on everything, like April, May, June. Where's flight 4? And I'm a firm believer of, and don't hit me here, June. I think it will. I think the 4th flight will go in June, based on current pacing. Not April. I saw some people were like, oh, they're gonna do April, May, June, and then every month the Starship. No, I do not think so.
I think that entirely depends on how this flight goes, how Flight 3 goes. I think if everything goes right with Flight 3, I think that June is a very, 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 very good estimate. That's probably right. Yeah. But once again, you don't know. Maybe something damages the pad this time. The flight goes good, but it damages the OLM. Maybe the tower gets messed up or something. Like there's a lot of things. Maybe SpaceX learned something and they were like, oh, we got to fix that. Like it could be anything. But I think if this flight does meet or exceed their expectations for it, yeah, June is probably a pretty safe estimate. Trevor, what do you think?
Yeah, it's hard to see before June.
We can hear the gears turning.
The final work on booster just takes so long, and it's a great sign that Ship 29 is already out at the pad. Right, they had what was thought to have been an aborted spin prime test yesterday, and then I would imagine that they'll try again. Probably sometime early next week, depending on how preparations for Flight 3 are going. That's obviously going to be more important to SpaceX, but I find it unlikely that they could get under like 2.5 month time between launches. There's just still a lot of work to be done on those vehicles, and these vehicles are big, they're time consuming, and it is only Flight 4.
It's not like it has, like 33 engines or something in it, the most complicated plumbing design ever. Like, it's no big
It's
deal,
easy.
Right? Speaking
And we actually got a very good question here about complicated design I want to throw to you, because it's a cool one. Why not save weight and complexity by having a single tank of premixed fuel and oxidizer and only one turbo pump to pull fuel into the combustion chamber?
That's dangerous. Yeah, that's super dangerous. I would say that. Okay, why is it dangerous? There's a little bit of a trade-off here, all right? Carrying liquid fuel and oxidizer, keeping them separated, right? You're obviously going to add more mass to the design here, but you will simplify if you carry a pre-mixture, right? Like, if you could. Like, I'm playing off the notion that you could. I don't know how you could mix liquid methane and liquid oxygen, I suppose, but how do you know that you're getting the right mixture in there? How do you know you're getting the right amount of each? What if you pull more methane for a second? What if you pull more LOX for a second, right? Because it's all mixing and swirling around in there like a big rocket propellant milkshake, right? You got to, having individuals is a good way to make sure that you meter the fuel correctly, but also, like, okay, now you have an atomized mixture, or, it just could be a mixture. You'd have to find some way to combine those things and atomize them in the tank. Well, let's say you could do that. That's really explosive, like really explosive. I always say with rockets, you want the explosion to come out the bottom, and you only want to mix the propellants right where that explosion happens. Because mixing the propellants anywhere else, that could get you an explosion not in the rocket engine. And if a rocket engine is exploding sideways and not exploding downward, you got a big problem.
It also doesn't help. Oh, go ahead, Adrian.
Go ahead, Trevor. No, Trevor.
Okay. It also wouldn't be possible. The melting point of methane is lower than the boiling point, or basically the same as the boiling point of liquid oxygen. So with the amount that they super chill, the methane would actually end up being a solid in that mixture.
Yeah, I was playing off the notion that you could mix those things, right? Like, even if you could, which I think is like the reference to the question. But yeah, I don't think, those two don't play nice like that.
Yeah, it's basically the combination of safety. Is it even worth it to do? There's tons of things why you wouldn't do that, and basically you would kind of mix your perfect bomb there. Like, you kind of mix in the case of Starship, you have like a 5,000-ton bomb there, and I think that's the flight termination system team departing the booster FTS.
All right, here we go. Let's go.
So it seems like we have an FTS on the booster. About 100.
It's Miller time. All right.
It's 130 hours. Like, we are. This clock is going so much closer every time I look at it. It's worrying. It's very much worrying. But it seems like they're progressing well here. They're getting there. We'll see if they might launch on Thursday. And to recap again, SpaceX has very much confirmed that they are targeting right now, pending regulatory approval, which has not been given yet, a launch of the third Starship Super Heavy stack as early as Thursday. So just
excitement guaranteed.
Absolutely. There's always these people that really they try to be very anti-SpaceX sometimes, like these they're just I don't like SpaceX. I'm like, A, why are you excited for only certain rockets? I like to be excited about every rocket. Why would you pick the things you're excited for? And B, how can you not be excited about the biggest rocket of all time? Like, if you're not excited about, it's mad. Why?
Dude, I don't know, man. Ain't nobody gonna convince me that less rockets is better for spaceflight. That's silly. That would be silly. No one ever argues about that on the internet, ever.
And just to point out here,
would
there's
be
only
silly.
1 out of 2 panels apparently closed on the booster. They still have the booster FTS, the second booster FTS open. So there's 2 panels, and the second one is open. That they just departed. So maybe just a lunch break. I'm not sure. Like, do you have a lunch break while after we installed half of these explosives? Just take a snack. Could be possible.
Yeah, I mean, I'd take the lunch up there with me, but then again, you don't want to get crumbs in the explosive. That would probably be. Does that count as FOD, Trevor? You think that counts as FOD?
Yeah.
You sure?
My sandwich was in the FTS, and that's why it didn't work.
Better there than in the turbo pump. In the turbo pumps, you mentioned if that was the one that clogged the filter, somebody forgot a sandwich and it just went into the filter.
Hey man, NASA tried that once. Okay, bringing a corned beef hash. Well, it wasn't NASA, but they tried bringing a corned beef hash sandwich into space. All right, they tried that. That was tested. Just saying.
Just a nice moldy sandwich clogged in the filter.
That would be. I don't like that. He's so proud. Yeah, but there you can see the FTS. The upper box is. I think that you can even see the charges, right? The white box should be the charges, right?
I think so.
So there's an open charge here. They will at some point close this, hopefully. I do not think they will fly with an open FTS cover.
So based on what they did on Flight 2, we can expect them to pull the pins now. So they won't need to do, like, right on Flight 1, what they had to do was they installed the FTS, kept the pins in, they would, had the stack, and then they quickly had to destack, pull pins on ship, and restack. That didn't happen for Flight 2. So, one would conjecture that that's probably not going to happen for this flight as well.
Yeah, it's somebody actually asked, like, sorry, I didn't click fast enough on the question, because there's like this whole thing about there's a soft arm basically, and there's like a kind of hardware arm and a software arm, because they will pull the pins, right? From that moment, in theory, they could explode these charges. However, there's for sure like another software mechanism that prevents them from detonating these charges while there are people next to it. So there's still a certain amount of safety here that it's not like the vehicle computers are started and as soon as they now notice something, charges go off. It's not armed like completely yet. It's just the pins are gone. They're in theory armable. So in theory armable, is that sounds weird.
Because there's also the FTS. There's a weird term that starts with an I. Like, I don't know. Apparently, there's also something on the ship, QD, that prevents FTS from being activated while that's still in, and then that gets pulled out when the
detent?
QD. What?
Is it a detent on the QD?
No, inhibitor. That's the word I'm looking for. Not that weird of a word.
Inhibitant.
Yeah, so I think there's like an FTS inhibitor on the ship on the QD, so that when that's in, FTS can't be charged, and then once it gets pulled out as part of the QD, then all of the charges are armed.
And we are just quickly checking in while we are also standing by here for the first Kairos rocket to fly out of Japan. There it is.
Oh, yeah.
It's 12 minutes and 30 seconds away from launch here, and that's another thing we will cover here in NSF Live. We want to see this fly. Just to quickly recap, we have 3 solid stages on this one and 1 final liquid upper stage for the final orbital adjustment insertion. So pretty like a proven concept lately, I would say, or like a more commonly used concept in the last few years, where you just use solids to get to space a bit cheaper, maybe a bit easier to assemble.
Yeah, so Adrian, isn't there something kind of interesting about this launch? As depending on how you look at it, it's kind of the first private launch out of Japan, right?
Yeah, I think it's the whole thing about here Mitsubishi Industries, of like, if you count their rockets as like private because they are like state It's kind of like the whole thing of like at what point do you consider a private launch? But yes, this is a private, like based on some definitions, the first private launch out of Japan in 11 minutes and 30 seconds from now, and I like that rocket. It's a simple, like I don't know, it feels very, do as they say, it looks like a rocket. That's a weak punchline.
Tubes, hey, chat, tube.
I'm so sorry for the person that designed this rocket, because imagine you designed a cool car and like somebody comes up and be like, yeah, that certainly looks like a car, and you're like, oh cool, thanks for the feedback. That's so generous of you. So yeah, I'm apparently not the best one in giving compliments, so I'm sorry.
You know, I mean, looks the part to me, like, you know, and to echo Tim's words, the pointy end is facing in the right direction. So let's see if the flamey end does that. You know, it points in its right direction.
Question about aerospace rockets: would the pointy end be then up and down? If there's ever a rocket with an aerospike, because it's pointy up and down, because the aerospike is also pointy.
Depends on the type of aerospike.
Okay, yeah, some of the aerospikes are pointy, and so you could have a pointy up and a pointy down.
Yeah, but it doesn't specify pointy end up or pointy end down. It's pointy end up, flamey end down. If the aerospike flames out, we're technically still correct, and that's the best kind of correct.
I would say you have to say pointy end up and down, because you're kind of asking where's the pointy end, and the pointy end would basically go flowchart up and down. We are losing ourselves for technicalities here. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Adrian, it's a Friday. My brain can't handle this.
Yeah.
They're also working on TPS tiles again, apparently, on the ship, because there's this re-entry part here that they really want to make. So,
yeah, it's impressive how much more they care about this on this launch. Like all the first launch, they did a decent amount of work. The second launch, they didn't care seemingly at all. And then this launch, they've been spending days going over these tiles. So let's hope that's like SpaceX thinking the ship can make it through re-entry.
I mean, the tolerance on the shim between those tiles, it has to be right. If it's not right, you're going to get potentially non-uniform heating because of turbulent plasma flow. It's a little bit more complicated than that, but long story short, those tiles have to be shimmed perfectly. Like, it's like, you putting in bathroom tiles, you're going to get one a little crooked. No, one little crooked doesn't fly very well here.
They removed one.
Yeah, they popped it off, put a new one on.
So we always talk about this, like they use a suction cup to test if they stay on. Is that literally like the thing that you also use to unclog your toilet if it's like clogged? Like,
I've never heard that thing called a suction cup.
Do you guys not have a word for a plunger over there?
Yeah, it would be. I think we call it pumper.
Huh.
I mean, technically, you're not wrong that it's the same thing, but
I mean, a plunger is a suction cup. I mean,
it's the same thing, right? It's basically somebody going with a plunger down all TPS and looking if they stick on, if they pull on them.
Can we just say that they're testing the mechanical adhesion of the tiles, and the plunger is not a plunger; it is a mechanical tile adhesion tester?
It sounds so much better if you call it like that, right?
Yeah.
What are we giving the odds, because it's SpaceX, that they went to the next Home Depot and actually got a plunger and like used that now for this testing?
I mean, if it's stupid and it works, is it really stupid? Like,
every other company would spend like a couple $100 million developing a tool to do this, and SpaceX would go spend $10 at the local hardware store.
I mean, I remember reading in I think it's Ashley Vance's bio about Elon Musk that they went down, they needed better thermal insulation on the Kestrel engine on Falcon 1. They went down to Home Depot and wrapped it in trash bags. All right.
I mean, if it works, it ain't stupid.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Hey, just go for it. Hey, that's an off-the-shelf component. And I don't know. I don't think in rocketry, I don't think off the shelf means actually go down to a hardware store and pull it off the shelf, but that's what they did.
I mean, I still think there's this. So in the early days of Raptor transport, I'm 100% sure there were some of these Raptors that were secured by pool noodles because they had different colors on them, and I bet you that somebody bought like a 50 pool noodles, made them around the Raptor nozzle, and with that protected them against like denting. And
Hey, it's
I
fine.
don't blame them.
You don't want to mess up the cooling channels in there. The cooling channels on that thing are very precise.
Insane, probably.
Yeah.
Did they replace that tile, or just I didn't pay attention? Did they remove it and replace it, or just remove it? It's interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. Once again, they're looking for shims. They're looking for shims or tiles that are not shimmed or not level. It has to be perfect. And the reason why I bring up the tolerance between the tiles is because when you're going through reentry, I mean, I don't know if you guys know, it gets kind of hot. So you're going to get some thermal expansion there on the tiles. And that when, they can absorb a ton of heat, but that doesn't mean that they're not going to, change shape. Most things when they absorb heat, change shape, warp, melt, whatever. I mean, the reason why they have that shim is because when the tiles heat up, they're going to expand slightly, right? And when they do expand, they'll form a perfect, barrier from the heat, right? And if you don't shim those right, the expansion rate is going to be wrong, and the tile will pop off. It'll pop off because it'll pop like a pog. It's kind of hot. I don't know if you knew that.
I think it's one of these things where I also think during ascent, like we have seen a lot of tile loss on the last flight, to be fair, and I still think it was probably some more. I do not think it was a force like the wind just ripping off a tile or something. It was probably just movement of the whole body, and the tiles were not properly attached, and they just popped because there was like too much pressure on certain areas of tiles, and then they just pop out. I think that was more likely that it happened than it was like a wind or something that picked the tiles off. Because I feel like that's something they would probably have figured, like how much force they need to be stable on the thing,
And
cube zoom.
I think it's also just worth noting that, as we were saying, it just wasn't a priority on the last launch. I think SpaceX knew that Ship 25 is a pretty outdated design. They had made large improvements to heat shield on 28 and the ships in the future. And on top of that, the point of the last mission was very much just to test the booster. All of the ship data they got, I think, in some senses was just more of a win. So I agree it's somewhat concerning when you look at the last flight and think, ooh, they lost a lot of tiles. But on the other hand, when you don't really care, it's hard to judge.
I think for this one it would be way worse. Like if they are 100 meters in the air and already lost like 200 tiles, that's like they cared about this heat shield. So if that happens, that I think would at least show that they need some overthinking of their current process. Like it doesn't mean it's unsolvable. It just means somebody needs to maybe go into a room, look at a sheet of paper, and think about it again about what to do here. Like. And that's how I imagine engineering work as a not engineer. Like you go into a room with a sheet of paper and you do sheet of paper things. I probably imagine there's more complicated things involved in that. Also, FDS boys are back. Thank you for saving me.
Yep. They're making paper airplanes in there. Woohoo! Yeah.
It's like just like paper airplanes into a dartboard, and like they would put all the ideas on the dartboard, and the one that puts like the paper plane into a certain idea, they're like, yes, that's our new tile.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I make dinner decision.
You don't pay Jeopardy for it? No, all right.
No.
No. No. All right. Never mind.
No,
I'm sorry. I'm just being dumb.
No, I mean, we are. I think that's kind of the purpose here. We are very close to actually the launch of the Japanese rocket here, while they are arriving at the FTS here again. But let's focus on this one here. I think we are just 2 minutes away here, so I think it's really time to to look at it. And also with a nice spaceport.
I want to go to Japan so badly. Like, it's such a gorgeous country.
Yeah, I've been there. Yeah, Japan's pretty awesome. Can confirm.
That's did you see a rocket there, DJ?
I freaking wish, man. I wish, but no, I was just in Tokyo when I went there. The launch site is not near that.
Yeah, it's like there's like two, right? There's one at the south for the southern like polar corridors, and there's like one on the like north and east, I think. Is that correct? Like, I'm not sure about the second one. I know the first one is like on the very low end of the.
Tanegashima is where it is. It's.
Okay.
I don't know if I mean I know there's going to be people here that know more about Japan than I do. Is that Kyushu? Does that count? I know it's its own island, right? But does it count as part of the main islands? I'm not sure. I'm
not sure either, but it's certainly like on the bucket list of going there. It's an awesome place. It's a beautiful country, Trevor. You're absolutely right. I can confirm. It's amazing. All right. Also on the bucket list for a certain company here is to launch to space in 12 seconds from now. Watch for the SRBs here. It's gonna be probably a speed from the pad.
Yep, you'll see a priming charge and then main ignition here. +2, +3.
That to me looks like not a liftoff.
But Joe's such a technical person, Trevor. But I know what's wrong with it. It ain't got no gas in it. Somebody they still need to intern with the lighter. They're like. So yeah, is it a delay? I mean, it's a solid. It's probably has some capability to move in its 10-minute window here. Like, it probably can just ignite at any time. I'm wondering if the timer up there is just an animation, or if it's actually showing the timer here. Because if it's actually showing the timer and the internal clocks on this thing is still running, that is a problem. Timing problems. We talked about that and why timing stuff is important with spaceflight. The capsules we were talking about previously. They took. Yeah. See, I'm guessing that timer was just an animation. That was just a clock that was synced with the actual timer, and it's not like a real time represent. It's just a representation of the clock, because they definitely took it off there. Yeah, it's noticeable. It would be bad if that would be the actual connected to the launch telemetry, because that would mean that their launch computer is still going in plus, even though that would be very bad. That would not good. You said crossing the streams was bad. Yeah, I mean, you don't get that. Yeah, okay. Oh, there's a new clock now of 14 minutes. Okay.
So
that looks like a recycle.
Yeah, Cosmic Penguin on Twitter, who follows a bunch of these international launches, said that they heard something along that sounded like the Japanese word for abort. But now that we can see on screen, it seems like they're recycling for another attempt in 13 minutes and 50 seconds.
Congratulations, everybody! You just won a bit more of NSF Live.
So the thing is even if you call an abort and you recycle the count, right? That doesn't necessarily mean you go for launch. I mean, a lot of launch vehicles will recycle to a 15-minute hold, right? And that doesn't mean that they're going to send it again.
But the weird thing is, it ticks again, right?
It depends on the rocket, to be honest. It depends. I'm not familiar with Kairos here. I'm not 100% sure how their sequencing system works. I know there is a sequencing system, because that's like saying, this car doesn't have tires. No, it probably has those if it's a car.
So it seems like rescheduled to end of window 02/17/12 UTC is the current T0 according to Cosmic Penguin, who is very good with this stuff.
Yep.
Which suspicious, without going too deep into speculation, suspiciously, Yes, it's I hate that word. It's electricity and suspiciously are my enemies.
You
Which-
do all right, man.
Which sounds like troubleshooting. Like if you go to the end of the window to like last second, and you're like, that sounds maybe like potentially okay. Let's give us the time we have. Which I mean, this is a maiden flight, so a maiden flight would be kind of expected to run into some unknowns because they never did this so far.
Yep, anytime you step up to the plate, that's a baseball reference I'm not sure people are going to understand.
I understand it, I think, because there's a plate on the floor, right?
On the floor. Yeah,
like
sure. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, it's good enough. It's good enough. When you step up to the plate like this and you finally do get to test it, there's always going to be a little bit amount of risk. You're not going to know if it works until it works. You can have your suspicions, and you can minimize your chance of failure. A chance always favors the prepared, especially with rocket science. But yeah, sometimes just got to lick the stamp and send it.
Yeah, which is what Starship also prepares to do in less than 130 hours from now. What a transition, I know.
Look at you.
That's
Whoa.
just...
That was
That's how you
smooth.
come here.
Whew!
Smooth operator.
Yeah, and now I'm reminded that tomorrow is Formula 1.
Your last name isn't Saints, is it? By any chance?
Yeah, that's... he will not be there right now, right? Like, he will not be at the rain race tomorrow.
His appendix rutted. That's not good.
Yep.
But he'll be all right.
Yep. But yeah, I think I'm trying to see the box here, because we can see the open box they're working on through the lift. And I think they're like already working on, like, it looks almost like they're already working on closing it again. So maybe they just got the cover. I don't know.
Trevor, you can't look in the box. Neither can you, Adrian. You can't look in the box. No. All right.
But what's in the box?
Not.
That's my reference. I counted reference with reference. Come on.
This is fine. Everything is fine.
Mika Westman actually asking here about the FTS. How does the FTS work, given it looks like they just installed chargers on a single location on the ship and booster?
It's in a very structural area. So the flight termination systems are on the common bulkhead. It's basically the part with the oxidizer and the fuel tank kind of connect. It's a very structural piece. If you lose that, it's gonna.
Especially then you have...
That sound was nice.
Yeah, right?
Plus
Trevor,
then you have CH4
I think you're muted.
Oops. Plus then you have CH4 and LOX mixing. So then any ignition source is just going to rapidly get rid of all of your propellant, destroy most of the vehicle.
And what a coincidence, you just ignited a giant ignition source.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Total
basically...
coincidence. I don't think SpaceX
Atomization.
thought of that.
That's your word of the day, chat. Atomization.
We write that down. It's again, we are back to episode titles. If there would be episode titles, we would do atomization for this one.
Yeah,
Like last time we had
I'm
this
working
one.
on it, gun. Anyway, what? Sorry?
I got.
So I guess-
Sorry, German. But
Adrian, EJ, maybe it's worth talking about, like, what else are we expecting ahead of a maybe launch attempt on Thursday?
well,
Processing? I mean, well, they're gonna put the FTS on. It's not gonna be in a fully armed state. Like you said, there's an inhibitor on the QD. So what do we have to do after that? So once that workflow gets done, ship stacking, right? Maybe an additional wet dress, maybe, and then there's not much after that. I don't think. Maybe just making sure you have enough fuel and oxidizer in the tank farm.
yeah, I think they're done testing. I think they will not perform a number that wet dress because the whole like launch countdown out there and stuff. That sounds to me like, hey, we are really done with this. But yeah, stacking, FTL, like getting ready, evacuation the village. We need a lot more regulatory parts that need to drop still because, again, they don't have a launch license right now. And once that launch license is there, we potentially are good for Thursday. But again, it's Starship. Always have that in mind. Last time we were all excited for a date, and then a grid fin actuator broke in one final test, and suddenly they had to replace a grid fin actuator. So
there you go. Hey, Phil, with the 5 memberships, my guy. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Let me display that here. Click. There we go. But yeah, they were also working on tiles still. They were like there probably is also there's probably a flight readiness review and a launch readiness review somewhere in there that involves like all parties where they just go over everything and make sure everybody's good to go. Probably also involving like NASA and stuff because I bet that like NASA and HLS especially are present at such meetings and like at least give some input.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so, yeah.
I mean, that sounds about right. Yeah, I mean, you guys are probably right with the testing. To be honest, like, yeah, I mean, maybe they do, maybe they will, maybe they won't. I mean, I think it's much more regulatory. That's a good point.
Yeah, which is good. Like they did their homework, and doing their homework is good. So we'll see how this goes. But I mean, I'm excited. Like I'm still in this mode where, of course, there's like so many things to think about and like do before, but I'm also like once the countdown starts, right? Like once we're seeing like especially when press people are starting to put their cameras there and we know they're like setting up remotes and all of these things, like these are the moments when you know it's a launch. We are no longer observing a static fire, we are no longer observing a wet res, a rollout, whatever. It's a launch again. So
now I have a question for you guys. You guys get nervous watching these?
I think more excited.
Yeah, I don't get nervous.
Yeah, there's no like really cool payload or crew on top to be nervous about.
Yeah. Were you nervous about James Webb, Trevor, when that launched?
Yeah, my heart was racing for that one. The most nervous I've ever been was Demo 1 or Demo 2 first launch attempt. I wonder what my heart rate was, but it was high. But second launch attempt when they actually launched, I weirdly was like pretty calm.
I think Demo 2 was pretty like second highest for me in terms of like nervous actually, because well, it's 2 astronauts, right? So there's a difference there. I kind of stopped like proper breathing until they were at max Q. Like the first when they started, it was just like, okay, watching, observing, and I think the nervous I was James Webb because I'm a European, and imagine if the European rocket killed the Space Telescope, I would have not been able to hang out in any NSF chat or in any other rocket-related chat for the next 5 years. So
it was wild. It was wild. We actually saw, Stefan Israel and the rest of the Arianespace team in the Mission Control Center down there actually smile for a change. Like it's good when the Europeans are smiling. They're usually game face, like poker face and mission control the entire time. They were pumped, and I'm like, all right, you smile, yes, all right, yeah.
That's a good sign. That's like a checklist item. No, I think James Webb was that was intense. That I mean, it's Ariane 5. I would pretty high trust because Ariane 5 is usually a very reliable rocket. So it probably was fine. But even then, you had the whole deployment sequence and everything. Like, that was just part of the journey. That was just a crazy time. Just experience this whole deployment and mirror changing, and that was wild.
And it was on Christmas.
Yeah, that's right, dude. I remember that. That part sucked. That part sucked. I was at my in-laws' house streaming from my in-laws' house. Like, I'm like, they're like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I got to do this. I'm sorry. This is important."
Yeah, that was around Christmas, right? Like that was. That was the whole thing about James Webb. I remember that. That was fine. But yeah,
hey, it was good. I mean, I can tend to say that there's a lot of single fault redundant stuff on James Webb, but if it's simple enough, double fault redundant, two fault redundancy actually can complicate a design. Like they were like, oh, there's 350 single fault redundancies on that thing to get the thing to fold out, and they all have to work right. Everyone's like, oh my god, why wouldn't they make it double redundant? I'm like, because like there's only so many ways you can make a lever. Right, I could just say that. I was like, "Oh yeah, it's gonna be fine. It'll work," and it did.
Yeah. It worked. It was. By the way, I was at my parents' house because it was the second day of the first day of Christmas actually, and it was probably around dinner. So there you go.
Yeah,
weird. Hey, weird to convince.
More than one day of Christmas.
Yeah, we do Christmas Day, like Christmas Eve 24th, then we do Christmas Day 1 and Christmas Day 2. Like that's what we celebrate.
What?
Here. Yeah.
2 Christmases over here means something very different. Just saying.
It's like 25th and 26th. It's 25th and 26th, and on 27th I watch Lord of the Rings.
What?
Every time. It's 27th. It's Lord of the Rings Day. It's a Christmas movie. Where are we with the Japanese rocket, by the way? Where are we standing?
A minute away.
There we go. Patrick, let's bring up that rocket again. I'm just ignoring this. I bet you if we do a poll of like, do you think Lord of the Rings is a Christmas movie, there will be at least a few that agree.
Rocket.
Yeah, rocket. 45 seconds. So let's see here. I feel like we have been here before.
Deja vu.
Yes, deja vu.
Spitfire. No, it's Japanese rocket. I had to. I'm sorry. Yep. I could feel the judgment. It's fine.
No, it's fine. I feel like we are judging each other here, so we are fine.
Yep.
So again, we want to see some SRBs here in 15 seconds. This is the end of the window, so it does go in 15 seconds. That would be problematic for today's launch attempt.
All right, here we go. So once again, you should see an igniter, like an igniter charge. Should be some smoke here coming out the bottom, if it does.
Yeah. I think we can safely call that an abort for the day.
Whoop. That's yeah. It's not going for today. We are waiting for confirmation here of what's exactly happening and if they will recycle.
I agree, Jack. Yeah, that is in fact not going. You can tell because of the way it is.
I disagree, Jack, for the record. And I will continue to send you on Instagram pictures of people destroying their cameras when I see them. It's a thing. Either way, I think we can move away from this because nothing will launch out of Japan tonight. Or today. Sorry, tonight. 3 a.m. here. But hey. We'll see if they go for it again in the next few windows. Let me thank some more people here because I'm so bad at this. I'm falling behind. Like when you have conversations, you just fall behind there. It's just you forgot that. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry.
You? I can remind
you. Yeah, please. Yeah, let's just remind me. Like,
all right. I'm just gonna interject when they do it.
Yeah, perfect.
A lot of experience reading chat.
Yeah, the Twitch experience coming in.
Yeah. All right.
Richard here with a story message. Go Starship. My grandkids love all the rocket launches and are always asking to watch SpaceX. Thank you so much, Richard.
Very nice.
Yeah. Always cool to see kids excited for space.
Yep, it's great. That's why I do what I do.
Absolutely. I think especially inspiring younger people to actually potentially go into the field and working and developing modern rockets and working in that industry is one of the biggest motivator to be a commentator for rocket launches and do things in this educational area. Yes, I agree.
I mean, yeah, and I'll say from, coming from the other side of this, broadcasting the launches, covering the launches, right? They make it really easy to promote this kind of content, like especially SpaceX with all the launches that they do. It's very, very easy to show people how cool this is,
Yep. Yeah, I mean, landing rockets kind of helps. I feel like if you can show somebody, by the way, these skyscraper high rocket boosters are just landing on these landing platforms there. That's kind of cool.
Yeah. It doesn't suck.
Yeah, it actually is above average.
Pretty good. It's pretty good. No big deal.
Jen Dubker here coming in with a $10 super chat saying, I like grid fins over the flippy wings that Blue Origin or Rocket Lab are going to use. There's a name for these. What are the flippy things? These... Are they canards?
Oh,
Fins.
No. I would say fins. Airfoils?
Yeah, there's probably a technical term here, and I get it wrong, and Harry, especially with Blue Origin, will be very mad. Sorry, Harry.
He's not.
He is.
What?
Charles coming in with 20 Red Team memberships. Thank you so much, and I hope everybody said thank you for Charles. To Charles, actually. Steve, will come with the $10 super chat here. NSF host for 200. Who is smarter, Jack or Trevor? We need to... Trevor.
Track.
Jack, I challenge Jack to some quiz show. He will destroy me, and it'll be entertaining.
I feel like it's very much depending on what field is. Like, we need a proper ground and establishing format of what quiz. But I'm down. I think EJ we should host this, the big NSF quiz. Actually, the big NSF rocket quiz would be a fun format to host.
Accepts.
I've always wanted to be a game show host. Yes.
We are serious, we are coming in with we are coming in with suits and everything of a game show host, and with these small presenter cards. That another thing for game show hosts in the States as well.
Yeah, of course.
I feel so culturally disconnected sometimes here.
Adrian, come on down. You're the next contestant on The Price is Right. Dun, 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 dun.
What is The Price is Right?
Oh.
Don't worry about it.
Rusty Android coming in with a $10 super chat here. Where are we with the kills? So far, no killed ordered and no killed on Jack. Blake Alexander coming in with $20 with actually two $20 tips. Adrian and Trevor, have you seen Clockwork Orange? Do Jack and EJ have planned to get you up to speed a la Clockwork Orange on pop culture? So on my reaction, you probably can tell, yes, I know what that means, and yes, I have seen Clockwork Orange.
Never heard of it.
Oh. Okay.
I've seen it in ethics class, actually. We did an analysis in school in ethics class of Clockwork Orange, if I remember correctly.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Nice. It's a good flick.
Yeah. John Dopker with a $5 super chat. My first copy of Star Wars Trilogy was on a Laserdisc.
Yes! My guy! All right, Laserdisc. Heck yeah.
Eternal Swordsman with a $5 super chat. Laserdisc was the best video format. I accept no arguments.
Oh, yeah! All right.
You're on a roll here. Oh, God. Jason with a £15 super chat. Out of all the inventions over the last 100 years, the whiteboard is the most remarkable.
As a mathematician, blackboards, for some reason, only mathematicians use blackboards. And they are so much better. They're so much easier to pay attention to. I will take a blackboard any day over a whiteboard. Whiteboards are so bad.
Like chalk? Like a chalkboard?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
All of my lectures are on Blackboard, and I love it. It's so much better.
Elizabeth Hubner with 10 Red Team memberships gifted. Thank you so much. The Texas Bandit with $10 super chat. Anti-slosh baffle Saturn S4B. Simple, easy design. Google it. We used it 50 years ago, and it worked.
Oh, this is RE ullage thrusters. Anti-slosh doesn't work for settling propellant. It works for basically preventing your propellant to vortex. You don't want it to whirlpool going into the pickup and then into the turbine. that can have gyroscopic forces affecting the vehicle. Anti-baffling is huge, but settling propellants is a little bit different than what an anti-slosh would do. But yeah, you're right. We did use that, and it was a really good idea.
And shows you also how early they had to think about these problems. It's really a problem from the first kind of situations. I have problems saying this name. Which gas do they use to repressurize the ship's cargo bay after opening and closing ship's cargo bay door?
They don't repressurize.
Yeah, they don't. There are vents on payload bays and fairings so the pressure will equalize to allow it to basically not give positive or negative pressure. So, like, if you look at Falcon 9, right? If you look at the two fairings, there's two vents on the bottom of each fairing segment, but it's on the sides. That's for letting all the gas out. And then, when the fairing obviously comes back down, right? Not that you need to let the gas in, but another good example would be the shuttle. The shuttle has vents on the sides of the payload bay to make sure the gas goes out of it. And then when it was coming back down during entry, descent, and landing, gas could flow inside to pressurize the payload bay as it got further down into the atmosphere. Good question.
Yep, absolutely. And it kind of helps that satellites are already designed to operate in vacuum. So exposing them to vacuum will not hurt them because that's their natural habitat, you could say. A state from Jake Farm with a $9.99 super chat. Would SpaceX want to test Starship with payload? If I remember correctly, the Super Heavy exploded due to needing to drain excess fuel. Is fuel draining a capability they want to have?
Yeah, this is something that's pretty standard. You don't want more propellant than you have to, so they dump some on the way up.
They also, but they so the answer, I mean, Trev, like that, if in case anybody's wondering, like, why would you fly with extra propellant then? Because, well, you need to, your fluid or your commodity mass needs to be right. Because if they launch Starship with just the amount of fuel that they needed, you'd be running into that whole, going too fast, too quickly problem. You want to get a good mass simulation, try to get some good trajectory information out of that. So you want it to kind of weigh similar to what it would be if it was launching with payload. So you'd weigh the vehicle down, weigh in quotation marks. And
Anonymous here with a greetings from Puerto Rico and a store message. And we will see what they got from the store, shop.nasaspace.com, where they got the patch for the third flight. Hope you enjoy that, and I think it's a really amazing patch. Sadly, I have mine in the other room. I would otherwise show you one right now, but too bad. Byteford with 5 Red Team memberships. Thank you so much, Byteford. David Kelly with the €5. Hi, I'm just wondering, will you guys be making the Starship stickers for the third launch similar to the patches? Stay tuned. We have some issues regarding the stickers. As of this point, we will probably not have the stickers before Flight 3, but we plan to bring back stickers as soon as we can. Tom Dalton with 5 Red Team memberships, and Alien becoming a Red Team member. And with that, I want to start to thank people here that were on the show today with me. We did 2.5 hours. Sorry for... we went a bit long here. But there was a Japanese launch.
Nothing, man.
Oh yeah, for you it's like 2.5. It's like that's warm up, right?
Yeah, come on, you guys don't want to go for 2 more hours?
We're doing like 5 every now. NSF Live will extend to 5 hours every week.
I mean, I don't think these fine people in the chat would hate that. Just saying.
For sure. I mean, we already have more questions, but I'm not sure if we will do that today. Because it's already 3:30 here.
I'm not gonna lie. I just wanted to see who would be like, "Oh yeah, I like this plan. I'm happy to be a part of it."
I did so. I mean, we did cryo streams in the past. Like, did you ever did the 8-hour cryo stream of a Starship? I mean, that's also happened. So yeah, I think most commentators here would be game. Either way, thank you, EJ, for being on today's show.
Wow, thanks for having me. It's always a privilege coming in here. Thank you everybody that supports us over there, and to the people that like if you don't become a member or anything, you're just here lurking around. We appreciate you, we really do. Thank you very much. Thank you for accepting my nonsense here on these streams. I do appreciate it. It's always a privilege coming here.
And if you want to have more EJ, make sure to check out on Twitch. My God. So make sure to Twitch. That was like the domain is up there. Thank you, EJ. And also with us today,
got you.
Trevor. Trevor, thanks for being with us.
Yeah, of course. It was fun to talk about all the things, many tangents. As always, thanks for tuning in.
It was certainly a very tangent-heavy episode, I felt like, but we went down every rabbit hole we found. So we kind of jumped into one other. It was a really fun episode. Patrick, behind the scenes here, making sure we all look well and presentable, and also giving us some amazing views. So thank you for that, Patrick. And also thanks for your cube zoom. And with
I'm
that,
here for it.
yeah, you have at least one fan.
I'm here for it.
And with that, I want to thank all members, last but not certainly least, that support us in above and beyond here with the launch directors and flight engineers. Thank you so much. But also thanks to everybody that supports us. Like if you do not have the financial situation to support us in any way, that doesn't matter. As long as you watch us, you interact with us, you have fun with us, that's all we need. So thanks for everybody that was in chat, hanged out, just had a good time. That's really what we're going for here. So thank you all so much. With that, I am Adrian Bile. I was your today's host. Thank you for that cube zoom. And with that, we will see you all on the next shows. Thank you so much for watching.
And here we go. We have liftoff.
Propulsion continues to be nominal.
RCPA chamber pressure looks good.
Rolling up. Roger, with planet.
Water towers, fly! Yes! Tango down to nominal.
Fighting downside FD off. Bring in FD off. Off. It's orange! Orange 45! Oh my god! Oh my god! Decollage! Put that in the big bag, Jingle.
343 unfolds to go.
Indeed. We rise together, back to the moon and beyond.
This methane will be igniting in the flare, correct?